I have 7 o'clock and we have a quorum. We have 8 people here. So I'm of an inclination to start the meeting because we have a long agenda. Lisa, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. All right. Joe.
Here.
John. Is John here?
No, I don't see him.
Okay. Greg.
Here.
Angela. Oh, Angela, you're muted. Here, Angela, right? I see her. I don't know that she can hear me. Alex.
Here.
Justin.
Here.
Jen. Is Jen here? Okay. I'm here. Candace.
Here.
Okay. Julie.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
And Mary. Mary. Right. So we do not have Jen, Mary, or Jen.
I hear Jen's voice.
I don't see her.
Maybe not. Maybe that wasn't.
I don't think that was her yelling. Okay,
John
well,
just popped up on
will
my.
join us, but we do have a quorum.
I have no sound.
Who's that?
That
I have
Angela?
no sound. Oh, thank you.
I think that was Angela.
About that, I needed the 13-year-old to get me
I
sound.
know. Okay, so Angela,
Uh-oh,
you're
no
here.
loss.
Okay.
I am here. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All right, thank you. We have a quorum, Greg.
Okay.
Members.
All right. I would like a motion to amend the agenda to move to next after this call to order, a presentation related to ag science.
So moved.
Where'd he go? Lost him now. Oh, there he is. Yeah, we have Mr. Lawler here. So, okay, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor, please. Oh gosh, please raise your hand so I can see you, and keep it up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Did I count Angela twice? I counted her twice. Oh, I'm 9. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Who made the
Okay.
motion? Who made the motion?
I moved the motion.
You did. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Lisa.
All right. All right. So, Mr. Lawler, it's your presentation, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Kava. Ben, do you have my presentation to share, or should I share my screen?
It's up to you. You want me to do it or?
If I can, that might be easier for advancing. Let me give it a try and see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Mr. Lawler, before you start, I'm going to ask if everyone can mute their microphones, and also you may want to turn your view to the speaker view so you can watch the presentation.
I just have verification that full screen present mode did work. Ms. Bennett, is the presentation sharing well? No. Okay.
It says that you have started sharing, but I do not see anything on the screen at this time.
Ben, would you mind sharing the presentation then for me?
Sure thing. Sure thing.
Thank you so much. I sent you a link to it in the email earlier. Perfect. All right, so thank you so much for considering the following request for Chippewa to bring a limited number of students alongside with the Woodbury FFA chapter for considerations for the 2021 FFA National Convention. Please advance. So this year's convention has a theme for the future for all. The National FFA is seeking students to become tomorrow's leaders and to bring sustainability to our country in a very different way. Our FFA wants to be an inclusive and supportive organization to help solve all of our problems for the future. Could you please advance? So getting into what the trip would actually mean for the students. As I hope you all remember and know, the FFA remains to be our country's largest student-led organization, this year surpassing 760,000 members. The FFA is found in schools across all 50 states and Puerto Rico, and the annual convention and expo is our big event for FFA members each year. We have members, advisors, alumni, agricultural professionals, universities, researchers, and so many more people come together to explore the impact of agriculture and the future in our country. So the FFA Blue Room, seen here, is a dedicated hall where colleges, universities, and companies present their newest technologies as related to agriculture. The belief of the Blue Room is to share ideas and concepts for creating a sustainable future and inspiring our young members into choosing to be part of solutions for their futures. As the Chippewa Agri-Science Academy is focusing on teaching a sustainable future through our curriculum, the FFA Blue Room is expected to inspire our knowledge and to bring new light to additional opportunities for our students. Advance, please.
Hey, Bob, could you come here for a minute?
So in addition to the newest technologies, the convention and expo.
Could you come here for a minute?
Can I remind everybody to please mute their microphones?
So they'll have multiple exposition halls throughout the convention, showcasing other common agricultural companies and careers for their students to explore and question their individual areas of interest. The expo and Blue Room will be scheduled time for students to investigate outside of other planned competitions, various sessions, and leadership workshops. Over the 4 days of convention, students will be able to watch state winners of content and leadership competitions compete on a national stage. They'll participate in leadership workshops with students from across the country, and our students will be able to witness and explore exemplars in agri-science fair projects, SAE proficiencies, and other content-based areas. This year, we do not have any students competing on the national stage. However, in the near future, I expect to see our membership win many of our state level competitions and become some of these exemplars at future national conventions. I think this year is ideal for us, for our highest achieving FFA members, to explore national convention and fully understand the extent of these opportunities. I would expect these students to be able to gain insight and ideas to bring back to their peers and to their classrooms in the goal to help Chippewa become the flagship of agriculture education here in Connecticut. Beyond competitions, in the yellow on this page, you'll notice that it's been reported of over 10,000 hours of community service are completed in the course of these 4 days at convention, lending to an estimated greater than $240,000 of economic impact for the community. Next slide, please. So while at convention, our students would have the opportunity to impact, to be part of this leadership and community service. Ben, could you go back one slide, please? We'll sign up. Oh, seems we missed a slide in there. We would sign up for a day of community service. Yep, the one with the map and the little, that one. Perfect, thank you. We'll sign up to work side by side, hopefully a little spaced out, to continue our leadership skills and demonstrating how important it is to give back to our community. On this map on this page, you'll notice a lot of different color-coded projection dots. These were the projects held during National Convention last year. Because of COVID, National Convention last year was held purely digitally online. And since the day of service is so important, the National FFA asked chapters from across our country to complete a day of service project at home. Last year, Chippewa Agri-Science held a day-long cleanup here at our campus in Washington. And from that, we then partnered with the Steep Rock Land Trust and continued to offer community service events for our members throughout the rest of the year including over this summer. I'm hoping that by participating in a day of service at the National Convention, that our officer team would be able to experience a new level of community service, bring their experiences and their new knowledge back to Chippewa to help us explore our ways to offer community service and better our community here in our own region. Next slide, please. So beyond these major events that would be taking place at this convention, the students' days would also be filled with countless other leadership opportunities. They'll be able to network with members from every other state. They'll be able to witness their national officers, hopefully becoming their role models, and how these officers handle the meetings at the national stage, as well as their retirement addresses. Our students would be present for other national speakers. Some examples of this include NASA administrators, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and it is also customary to have an address from the President of the United States at this event. Each day will be scheduled nonstop for student learning, and as the day wraps up and we do have some downtime back at hotels, our students would be directed to reviewing and working on any missed school lessons and time to completed their missing homework. Next slide, please. So in summation, the trip that I would like to request today would be leaving on a Monday morning. We've been graciously offered a spot to join our neighbor Woodbury FFA chapter on a chartered bus, which would be great for our students because they would immediately get the opportunity to learn from their local peers and find ideas from a program that has more FFA history than any other program in our state. This also would benefit us, the advisors, in learning the ins and outs of being associated with Woodbury on this trip that has over 100 years of experience with FFA. We would arrive in Indianapolis on Tuesday afternoon, check into the hotel in the convention center, complete our registrations, and complete a walking tour of Indy. And then dedicate some time that evening to make up more missed work and study for classes. Wednesday through Friday is going to be spent mostly at the convention center. They would attend sessions, workshop, experience things like the expo and the Blue Room. And afternoons and evenings would be scheduled tours of local attractions such as the zoo, Indianapolis Speedway, and there's a few other events that are put on by the FFA convention. Each day, again, hotel time would be dedicated for any other schoolwork that they're missing by being part of this trip. And Saturday would be a very, very early morning where we would board the charter bus and get brought back to Nonawag for a late evening pickup for parents on Saturday. Next slide, please. So I want to thank you all so much for your time and consideration for this complex trip at a very complicated time. In being part of the chapter over the last 3 years, I feel like this trip with limited students is the exact next step that our program would need to stay on course for the Chippewa FFA to become a leader in our state's organization. And I would be happy to take and attempt to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Right, give us a second to readjust.
Greg, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Alex.
Where is the convention?
The convention is at the National FFA headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, not in Ohio.
Correct. Ohio would just be an overnight stay Monday into Tuesday as we drive out.
I gotcha. Okay, I thought they moved Indianapolis.
Lisa.
Nope.
I might have missed it, but what are the dates of the convention?
This is for October 25th through October 30th.
Okay, thank you.
And Peter,
Yes.
how many students are going from Chippewa?
I would like to request that we'd be looking at taking about 8 students.
Okay.
Other questions? Peter, I have a question for you. What COVID protocols are you going to be observing? Are we going to insist that only vaccinated students travel?
I've been working very closely with Mrs. Bennett on this, and I would be following all of the Chippewa COVID requirements as the school states.
At this
Are
point,
there any requirements we ought to consider in addition to those? I mean, number one, you're on a bus with students from another school. I don't know whether those kids are vaccinated or not, but with the Delta variant being on the rise, I would be a little afraid that that bus could be a spreading event, not to mention the convention itself. I'm a little bit concerned about the situation right now in this country, especially since it's not like you're going to Vermont where 80% of the population is vaccinated. You're going to Indianapolis where it's more like 48% of the population or something like that. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. So if we looked into any other potential protocols we should consider adding?
as far as Greg, I'm just going to jump in, and Peter, if it's okay with you, if you don't mind me addressing some of these situations.
Absolutely.
It is public transportation, so like all public transportation, masks will be required at all times while on the bus. Additionally, the seating and the spacing will be taken into consideration to make certain that there is social distancing to the greatest extent possible. Your question regarding if we are only taking vaccinated students, we are at this time not restricting as we're continuing to work with legal counsel, but we are certainly making certain that all families know the potential risks that are involved if they would like to participate in this event.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Now's the time.
I have a question. Peter, how many students will be attending the convention? Is that a known number?
At this time, I do not have a known number for that. I know there are a few other chapters in our state that have approval to go this year. Those chapters are at slightly fewer numbers than in a normal year, I believe. And some chapters have decided not to go. So I would expect that this year's in-person convention will be lower than normal. I believe the last year it was held in person, it was about 65,000 members.
So I do want to let the board know, I have talked with Wamogo, I have talked with Region 7, we've talked with Region 1, and we've talked with Nanawag to make certain and find out what they were doing and in their decision making. So not wanting to limit the opportunities of our students, but also making certain that we were all in alignment with what were the COVID protocols as well as the opportunities we were going to afford our students.
Mary.
I'm very concerned that we may be sending some children who are not vaccinated. I particularly think that this event should only be available to those that are vaccinated. If they don't want to be vaccinated, they can stay home. I just, at this particular time with the Delta variant, sitting on a bus, being with that many other people, like Greg said, in a state that's not completely, almost completely vaccinated, I have my doubts whether it's a good idea to send kids that are unvaccinated. Is there, can we do anything about that? Are we allowed to do anything about that, Megan?
That question is posed with legal at this point. So to say to you that that is under consideration, but don't know to the extent we can actually restrict that opportunity. But it is one that I think we should give strong caution to our families, letting them know that this is the risk. And you're right, vaccination versus unvaccination is an extra mitigation strategy that could be employed for safety.
It's just that they're going to be with so many other people, and not only for themselves to be vaccinated, but to protect all the other people that they'll come in contact with. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it anyway. Sorry about
Greg.
that, Peter.
Can I ask a question, Greg?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Peter, you said that you have space for 8 students. Do you anticipate that there are going to be more than 8 students interested? And how are you going to choose the 8 if there are more than 8 that want to go?
I would certainly hope there will be more than 8. I'm working on some ideas. It will likely be a first come, first serve basis with some stipulations of preference given to student members of our FFA that have been very active and are showing a lot of leadership within our FFA. This year, we're limiting it, one, due to COVID, and two, as our first attempt at this. We really would like our most outgoing FFA members who have really bought in, shown these leadership skills, to be the ones to go experience this and bring it back to our chapter as nothing but a positive experience.
Thank you.
I just I wanted to correct the information I gave earlier on the percentage of people vaccinated in Indiana. According to today's Washington Post, the state average is 46% of all ages, 57% 18 and above. And it's the same for Marion County, where Indianapolis is situated. So it's a somewhat less than you would experience here in Litchfield County in any event. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, we're talking about an event that's 2 months away. What are our potential to be able to cancel if for some reason a Lambda variant comes out or something of that nature? Could we cancel up until last week?
At the moment, we have until I believe the first week of September to cancel hotels with no financial penalty. After that, there's about a month of a one-night stay per hotel room that is reserved. At the same point, we would be going with Woodbury's charter bus, and they're holding some hotels in Ohio for that first initial overnight. So I don't have the exact specifics, but if we were considering to potentially cancel close to the day of travel, we would need to consider any financial burden that we'd be putting on Nanawag as well.
Gotcha.
Pete?
Yes.
Pete, go ahead. Pete, you're muted. Pete, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. I guess we'd have to put some plan together to get some information to the parental community, because ultimately they'll make the decision whether their children can or cannot go. So we're going to have to do some form of communication with the parental community and advertise this particular issue to them. I presume the superintendent would do something like that, and then see what kind of response we get and then handle it from there. We're certainly going to have to put out a certain amount of information in advertising what this is to the parental community.
It occurs to me that if you're going to do this, if we're going to do this, we ought to investigate before we're committed whether or not at the availability of any trip cancellation insurance. You know, there are insurance policies available. I know I'm a member of a national organization that has has negotiated the ability to terminate their hotels. They've gone to the hotel and said, look, you got to let us out if there's a COVID issue. Otherwise, we're not going to book with you. We'll get a different hotel. And so they were able to, to make some kind of arrangements that way, but also there's cancellation insurance available. So we need to do that. We need to get an understanding of what the breakage fee is in the event that we have to cancel it. And I think we need to be prepared, and we need to make it clear to people that even if we approve this, if we see something that bothers us, even 3 days before, I mean, even if it's close on the event, that we're going to cancel it if we don't feel comfortable. The superintendent is going to cancel it.
And Greg, I will absolutely tell you, we will never put dollars over our student safety. So I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think it's incredibly appropriate.
Yeah, I think you need to go into it. I mean, it's a shame we don't know the breakage fee tonight, but I think you need to go into it with an understanding of what it's going to cost you, just so you've prepared to cover that in the budget. And you know what it is going in, rather than just going in and then finding out, oh my God, we canceled 3 days in advance. If we had only done it 4, we would have been able to avoid paying for every night of the hotel. So sometimes you get varied fees depending on how close to the event you cancel. But I think I would want the superintendent to know that and to have all that information before any reservations are made, and before we do anything on this, because I'm thinking this is I wouldn't be thinking the chances you're going to Indianapolis are great. Anyway, Alex?
What is the total budget for this event? Do we have a number between hotels, buses, et cetera?
Yes, we did the calculation. If we were to be approved and go, hotels, transportation, food, and all registration fees for all parts of the event would be just under $1,000 per student going.
And you're
Oh, so
thinking
we're
of taking,
talking $8,000 maximum exposure.
oh, so this is not a big deal in terms of
Yep.
dollars and cents. So if you end up getting half of it back or saving half of it, not spending half of it, it's a small price to pay. I think it's an extraordinarily worthwhile thing. I mean, I really want the kids to go. In a perfect world, I wish the whole group could go. But we don't live in a perfect world anymore, unfortunately.
And I do have to say, and I want to applaud, Peter and the entire agri-science team, and even thinking in terms of some of those savings, like sharing buses with Nanawag. And so knowing that we tried to limit exposure for this with every step of the way. And Peter did lay out at what dates start being a bit more financially exposed. So I think as we hit those stop gates, we will consider how right does this look to move forward and when it no longer becomes a calculated risk. So we will certainly monitor for those things.
Okay. Are there any further questions or?
So it's, in other words, the superintendent has a plan how to advertise this to the students and the parents. Is that correct?
I will be working with the agri-science teachers, but it will be with full disclosure as far as the choices they're making. We will never take risks on behalf of families. We will let them know everything that is happening and what are our recommendations on who should attend.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think they should also be made aware of what the relative vaccination rates are in Ohio, Indiana, and Connecticut, so that they can see where you're coming from, where you're ending up, and what you're going, where you're going to stop along the way, and let people make a decision based on understanding what the risks are. I mean, I'm not enthusiastic.
You guys go ahead and get started.
Health issues. So, okay. Other questions? All right. We have moved this to this position. This is actually an action item. It's number H2 to consider.
John had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Who was that? Who has a question? I don't know who it is.
John, your audio is not coming through.
Yeah, Don, if you're trying to speak, you're muted, but I don't know who wanted to ask a question.
It was John.
John? There you go. John, you're muted. Okay.
He's still not coming through. Your mic's not plugged in or something.
Or your mic volume is way low or something.
Can I ask a question in the meantime while John's
Yes.
figuring out
Go
his
ahead,
tech
Pam.
issues? So the question I had, I guess for Megan is there a plan in place? Would students have to quarantine or test upon arriving back in Connecticut? Do you have a plan for that?
We would align with the CDC. So I do think that there's a conversation to be had regarding what is return date, vaccination versus not vaccination. And right now we typically use the recommendations because it's not, the governor does not have any travel restrictions with that. However, they're recommendations, and we'd certainly let our families know these are recommendations that we endorse. But your question regarding testing is not one that we've explored. I think it would really depend on who the students who are going and talking and working with those families to see if that's an option that they would like us to utilize. So that brings up a very good point.
Okay. Are there other questions? John, have you managed to get your volume up? Yeah, we can't hear John.
Can I ask while John figures it out? Oh, John's going. Never mind. I can
He's
ask.
had your lavender in them years.
Ben, is there any way you can help John get his volume functioning?
I will give it a try. Definitely.
Thank you. Okay, I'm
Great.
sorry. Who wanted to ask a question?
Well, Greg, I just wanted to say that I just want to just share that I have the utmost faith in our superintendent and our staff and Peter, and know that they're going to do they're going to make all the right decisions, and they're going to anticipate all the scenarios. I know they're going to follow protocol, and I have no doubt that whatever decisions that are made are going to be made thoughtfully. And so I just completely support any of the decisions that Megan and Peter and anyone else that is involved in this make. So it's, all the questions that we ask, of course, they're going to follow the protocol. And I have faith that they will do what's right for the students.
We value that trust. Thank you.
All right. So I guess the question at this point is anyone going to make a motion to approve the request for a field trip to the FFA National Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana on October 25 to 30, 2021 for ag science students in grades 10 to 12. And I would add, if someone's going to make that motion, they should add the caveat subject to the superintendent's making a go, no-go decision on this.
So moved.
Okay.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All right. All those in favor, you know what I'd like? I'd like for Sue to call the roll so we can
Okay.
make sure you get everybody.
Okay. Joe,
Yes.
John,
Oh,
can he
John,
give a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
yeah. Can you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Where's John? I've lost him.
He's gone.
Okay.
Where is John there?
He's not there. He seems to have departed. I'm sure he'll be back in. He'll be logging back in. Okay, go ahead.
I just need to make note of that. Angela,
Yes.
thank you. Alex,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Candace,
Yes.
Yep.
Julie, Pete,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
Okay. Very good. I guess at this point, the next item on the agenda is public comment on agenda items. And I do want to move up as soon as possible. We have the New Milford Director of Health here with a presentation, and I would, I don't know. I mean, I would like to move that up, but I would also like her to hear comments. Sue?
Greg, you have another field trip from Peter. I don't know if while he's here, you want to address that
Oh,
one.
yeah, you're right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do that. Is there a motion to advance item H1 to the present? Request to consider if appropriate a field trip to the Big E Fairgrounds in Agawam, Mass, September 17th for grades 9 to 12. Is there a motion to move that up?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Harry seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? All those abstaining? And I will vote aye, so it's unanimous. We'll move that up. Okay. Go ahead, Peter. Can you give us this one?
Gonna say, this is much quicker.
Yes, this one I don't have a presentation for. The Chippewa FFA would like to attend on Friday the 17th, the Big E Northeast Exposition in Agawam, Massachusetts. Our students would be manning the state FFA floral booth and creating boutonnieres, skills they've learned in our class or will learn in our classes to hand out to any public that would be interacting. COVID concerns with this. It would be an indoor facility, so we would be following all of our standard SHPOG mask guidelines. Students would be masked. There's a counter and a booth. We should easily be able to maintain social distancing between our students and the public for that, and allow our students during a weekday to explore the Big E, which is also during the day and on weekdays, a lot less population at the Big E. So generally social distancing outdoors for the rest of the event of them being present should be attainable as well.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Would someone like to make a motion to approve this field trip subject to the same go, no go by the superintendent?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? You know what, Sue? Why don't you run a count?
Okay. Joe,
Yes.
I don't believe John is back yet. Angela,
Yes.
thank you. Alex,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Candace,
Yes.
Yes.
Julie, Pete,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and Greg.
Yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
All right. Now, I guess we should open the floor to public comment on matters on the agenda. If you would like to be recognized, please, is that hand raising reaction available? Yes. Please use the hand raising action and under reactions on the bottom of your screen. And that way I can see who you are, because unfortunately, and if you're not depicted, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't have a camera, we'll have to figure out how we're going to get you at some point. But and please excuse me, I have to toggle two screens to see all of you. So, but are there any members of the public who would like to comment? I see Jason and Nikki Arletsky.
Good evening, Superintendent Bennett, Chairman Kava, and Region 12 board members. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of not only my children, but for all the students of Region 12. Although it's been nearly a year, you may recall the last time I spoke to you. For those of you who don't remember, may not have been present, or couldn't hear me over the Zoom connection, it came right before the implementation of a somewhat controversial Region 12 school opening plan. In fact, that meeting and the buildup to it had a very similar feel to what we're experiencing now. If you don't recall some of the sentiments shared during that meeting, let me refresh your memory. At the time, there was a vocal crowd who insisted that we not open the schools to full in-person learning. In fact, here were some of the statements made from the folks that evening. Quote, I know that teachers are afraid to return and afraid to speak up. In-person learning wasn't the safest plan. We'll experience as losses we can't get back. Although everyone has the best intentions, the plan will fail. And in fact, we'll return to hybrid or return in a few weeks. After these sentiments, I shared what I thought the best way forward would be. I, of course, appreciated the feelings and of the parents and teachers, and I wanted to remind the superintendent and the board that the data didn't support not having in-person learning. When Superintendent Bennett then made the courageous decision to open the schools to full in-person learning, my wife and I felt a sense of pride that our school district was truly following the science while fighting against the fear that had paralyzed so many. As we all know, that decision was proven to be the correct one, as the region didn't go hybrid or remote the entire school year. If we fast forward to today, we hear many of those same people who were so firmly against in-person learning now insisting that our children wear masks all day. As I did a year ago, I can't stress to you enough now that the data does not support masking up our children. Not only is there little data pointing to the effectiveness of mask wearing in schools, but we're just beginning to learn about the ill effects of masking on kids, such as psychological, developmental, and social. Let me also add that we're fooling ourselves if we believe that wearing cloth masks is providing significant protection against any airborne virus. And of course, we'll hear from the New Milford Health representative in a second. I'll simply point to a study released just days ago from the University of Waterloo in Canada that found that cloth masks and surgical masks only filtered out about 10 to 12% of exhaled aerosols, respectively. Aerosols are, of course, the primary mode of transmission for coronavirus. The last point I'd like to make is simply a reminder. Let us remember that one of the major benefits of living in this area and sending our kids to Region 12 schools is the closeness of the community. It is because of that closeness that our kids are regularly and have been regularly gathering outside of school in social, athletic, and other settings maskless. It makes little sense that our children spend the day masked up at school when they're almost undoubtedly spending after school hours together, unmasked. I'd like to close with an oft-used, somewhat cliche, but ever so apropos quote from FDR. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Once again, I implore you, Superintendent Bennett, Chairman Cava, and the Region 12 Board of Education to not give in to the fear, and I pray that you find courage in your defense of our children. Thank you for our time.
Thank you very much. The next person I'll recognize are the Walraths. You need to unmute, please. Good. Excellent.
Yes, thank you. We both have a little bit to say, so I'll quickly go first. First of all, thank you for hearing us and for being here tonight and for all the work that you're doing. I know you're trying to create a safe environment for everyone. I did see the legal advisement that was sent out last week by Shipman Goodwin to the school boards. It is worth noting for anyone that cares about conflicts of interest that Matt Ritter, the House Speaker who has spent years spearheading the effort to remove the religious exemption for vaccines, is a partner at Shipman Goodwin. It's also interesting that one of Shipman Goodwin's largest clients is a large pharmaceutical company and vaccine maker. Matt Ritter's father, Thomas Ritter, is a partner at Brown Rudnick, a law and lobbying firm which also represents the pharmaceutical industry and vaccine makers. There are several other conflicts of interest related to this legal counsel that I would really like to highlight, but I won't in the interest of time. I just think it's very important for people to be aware of these things as they are relevant to this situation. Isn't it oddly convenient that people who are making and influencing the laws are also involved with enforcing the laws and apparently have some financial interest in the adoption of these laws and related mandates? I read the statement in full. To me, it sounded like a warning. Either enforce the compliance of mask wearing and other executive orders, no matter how dangerous or senseless they may be, or run the risk of losing funding for the school or facing legal ramifications. Under their terms, demanding that our children be allowed to breathe and interact without a muzzle will be seen as civil disobedience. I know many of you believe that we are doing the right thing by our children and our society by supporting these policies, and that this is all about protecting one another. That's after the entire narrative has been set this way for 1.5 years. And I personally don't buy it, and neither do many of the people that I know. But the beauty of this country has always been that people with differing viewpoints could coexist, and that people could be free to make their own decisions about what to put in their bodies, what to eat, what to believe, how to live. Embracing diversity does not only apply to our physical appearance, but should apply to the ways that we see the world and our beliefs. Within the span of a little over 1 year, we've all seen the foundation of our American freedoms and values severely eroded. This local situation we see unfolding, where local jurisdictions have lost their ability to decide what is best for their communities and must instead adhere to blanket directives from on a larger scale nationally and globally. People who think outside of the approved narrative or who question the safety of things that are being pushed upon them are being branded as dangerous and unwelcome. Aren't we champions of education here? Shouldn't we recognize that this kind of pattern has not ended well historically? It is literally frightening. I think that we should all ask ourselves how far we personally are willing to see this kind of thing play out. I really wish the best for the faculty and for the staff and students this year. I hope it's a wonderful year. And I really hope and pray that our children will be able to return to their classmates. Thank you.
I obviously echo the remarks of my wife. Thank you, Board of Ed members, for your time, for the community. Speak. I'll be brief. Unfortunately, my speaking this evening can't do anything to help the children of Region 12, be unmasked, nor does it help our kids who want to be back in school, play sports, play the clarinet and the band, etc. As Mr. Oleski noted, there is zero data that masks, especially cloth masks, have any ability to stop the transmission of viral particles. Before 2020, before the COVID came, There are countless studies showing the ineffectiveness of masks in hospital settings, in nursing homes, etc., to stop viral transmission, and lawsuits that were won by nurses unions where they did not want to have to wear masks during flu season, and they were won because the data supported that they don't stop viral transmission. Talking tiny little particles. My doctor actually explained it to me or in a conversation and said, it's like the mask is your house, and the weave of the mask is the front door, and the COVID particle is a mouse. And if your front door is open, guess what? The mouse is coming in. Again, like Mr. Oleski said, my wife said, the kids have been at camp, the kids have been at sleepovers, the kids are playing sports, they're getting together after school, they're taking their masks off as soon as they're home. I have some international information. The European Center for Disease Prevention, which is the European Union CDC, has stated no masks for children 6 and under in any situation. Ireland has dropped all of its requirements. Sweden never had any. Iceland is 15 and younger are completely exempt. Norway, under 7, no requirement. And England and Wales, who are having the same Delta surge as we are having, are no longer requiring masks on their school kids. Florida presented a great real-world observational study last year over the course of the school year with 40 districts with mask requirements and 27 without. The result was no statistical difference in school cases per enrolled students. This is coming from the Department of Health in Florida. I'll conclude with there are doctors, scientists, PhDs around the world who are trying to speak out against this narrative, and they're being censored out. The CDC and the FDA are both run by the pharmaceutical industries. It's a revolving door from the top brass of these companies and these institutions. And even though there are top virologists and scientists from the WHO and Nobel Peace Prize winning scientists who are saying it is the vaccine and this push to vaccinate everyone that is driving the variants, we are still just blindly following this narrative that we are all to be afraid and that we're all going to die. I for one find groupthink frightening. Hopefully our state legislator will remove Lamont's executive powers in September and give our local school boards and parents the right to choose whether to send your kids to school in a mask or not. Again, we just have that right to choose, right? And one last note, and this is in regards to the conversation about this fantastic sounding field trip to Indianapolis. The vaccine, any one of them, does not prevent contracting, or passing COVID. I'm going to say that again. The vaccine does not prevent contracting it or passing it. Okay? When will we stop this belief that getting vaccinated is going to stop this virus? It is endemic. We've known this for quite some time. That means that it's going to be with the human population forever. Okay? We will all get it at some point, and natural immunity is proving right now to be better than temporary pharmaceutical induced immunity. And again, thank you for your time. Unfortunately, our kids won't be at school this fall until they can go without masks on, but we wish the best for the region. So thank you.
Thank you very much. What town are you from? Can you remind us?
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater, okay. And could I ask the Orletskis if they could say for the record what town they're from?
Bridgewater.
Okay, Bridgewater, okay. Cindy Meglio.
Good evening. I have more questions rather than comments.
All right, could you just tell us before you start what town you're from?
Sure, I'm from Bridgewater.
Bridgewater, okay.
My question is, this meeting was originally supposed to be at the library, correct?
Yes.
Why was it transferred to Zoom?
Well, we generally don't answer questions. We don't engage in dialogue back and forth. This is an opportunity for you to present. We're not going to answer questions. So
you don't believe that as an elected board that you have to answer any questions?
Not in this forum, not in this forum. If you want to submit that, we'll be happy to get back to you. But I can tell you right now, to be perfectly honest, the reason this has been moved to this thing is I could not in good conscience put people in a room when I did not know whether or not people were vaccinated. And I'm sorry, I've heard some comments about vaccination. All I'm going to tell you is, if you want to know why your kids are wearing masks, it's because people aren't sufficiently vaccinated. And it's not that I reject what you say about vaccines. It's that we're going to listen to more assistance on this. But we are not going to hold meetings in public in the event we believe that the threat to the members of the board and the members of the public is greater than doing it this way. And there's no reason it can't be done this way. If we had board members become ill from being at one of these meetings, I would really have a hard time justifying it. So in any event, we're not going to answer questions, but
may I
those
ask
are the
why we
reasons
can't
why
just
you
wear
moved me.
masks?
No, you may not ask. You may present, but you may not.
Okay,
ask.
sir, I'll answer some questions.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not recognizing you. Ms. Maglio has the floor, and she can present whatever she wants to present or tell us what she wants to tell us.
Okay, so I guess I have to submit to you. I'd like to hear from the board members as to what their feelings are on the mask mandates. I mean, I know the governor issued the mask mandate, but prior to that, we received the email saying that you guys were issuing the mask mandate. So if you're going to issue those mandates, why do you not have to answer as to why you're issuing them?
The board is
And what
not
the reason
issuing a
was.
mask mandate. The governor has issued a
I
mandate.
understand that,
Law in
but the
Connecticut
email came
is 30th.
before. The email came before the governor issued the mandate from
I don't have
Chicago.
the email in front of me, and I don't know what the context of it is, and I can't answer your questions. Could we please move on? Could you either make a presentation, share with us?
I don't
what
have a
your thoughts are?
presentation. I just simply would like the board to answer questions that are asked of
The
them.
board is not going to answer questions in this forum. We're going to be here all night. We're not going to do it, and that's our practice. It's been our practice forever, so I'm sorry that we can't answer your questions.
That's a shame.
John, you are a board member. Are you wanting to speak as a member of the public?
Yeah, I want to do both.
Well, you speak as a member of the public, but the board doesn't entertain.
I want to speak as a
discussion.
member of the public.
Okay, go ahead.
because- And a member and a citizen of this whole entire world. In my almost 71 years of existence, this forced mask mandate for children is one of the most troubling issues of my lifetime. Therefore, I am compelled to voice my deep concern. Much of what I am about to say about the potential harm of mask wearing by children is taken from an excerpt in the Wall Street Journal. Mask mandates are especially cruel to young children. Adults are supposed to ease their fears, to reassure them that monsters aren't hiding under their bed. Instead, we're frightening them into believing they're being stalked by invisible menaces lurking in our air. Mask wearing will scar some children psychologically and maybe physically too, as prolonged pressure from the elastic straps could leave children with permanently protruding ears. By hiding teachers' lips and muffling their speech, mask wearing makes it harder for young children to develop linguistic skills and prevents children with hearing impairments from lip reading. Unable to rely on facial cues, teachers and students of all ages are more likely to misinterpret one another, a particularly acute problem for children with autism spectrum. How are children supposed to develop social skills if they can't see one another's faces, sit together, or play together? Those who have myopia can have difficulty seeing because mask fogs their glasses. Masks can cause severe acne and other skin problems. The discomfort of masks distracts from children's learning. By increasing airway resistance during exhalation, masks can lead to increased levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. Other hazards include the risk of choking, suffocation, and even strangulation. Masks can become vectors for pathogens if they become moist and are used for too long. Additionally, masks may exacerbate anxiety or breathing difficulties for some students. This is especially true for children with asthma. Chronic and prolonged mouth breathing can alter facial development. It is well documented that children who mouth breathe can develop mouth deformity and an elongated face. Facial expressions are integral to human connection, particularly for young children who are only learning how to signal fear, confusion, and happiness. Covering a child's face mutes their nonverbal forms of communication and can result in robotic and emotionless interactions, anxiety, and depression. You may recall that a parent at one of our recent board meetings lamented that her daughter had stated, "I do not want to live any longer if I have to keep a mask on all day." Masking children is absurd, illogical, and nonsensical, and potentially as dangerous as trying to stop every case of COVID or stopping COVID at all costs, as this will never happen. It is possible, experts say, that COVID-19 could become a seasonal illness likened to any other flu. Virologists call this an endemic disease, one that is constantly circulating among us. In the years and decades to come, hundreds of millions of people will be exposed to it in childhood and develop immunity, which will protect them later in life against serious illness. Masks are simply not needed for children based on a minuscule risk in children. The risk of dying from COVID in young people is almost zero. Specifically, the infection fatality rate for those aged 5 to 9 is less than 0.11%, 1/1000th of a percent. The chance of getting struck by lightning is far greater. As a default, children have a built-in natural defense. It is called our immune system, which is more than capable of overcoming any flu or cold virus, as this has been the case for millennia. It is evident from the parent-student testimony, or no students testified, but that many parents will refrain from sending their children to our schools rather than become submissive to these overbearing and draconian masks and other COVID protocols. It is yet to be determined exactly how many students this will equate to. A dozen, 50? I submit that even one person is one too many. Our student population is already among the smallest in the state. Can we afford any further reduction in our populations? It has been stated by our legal counsel that BOE members can be sued by someone who contracts COVID by other people not wearing masks. Conversely, can we be sued by parents whose child is psychologically and physically harmed by perpetual mask wearing, not to mention the resulting deficits in learning and overall quality of education? Obviously, I'm against the mask mandate for several reasons. There's been very little research and presented science that masks can prevent the transmission of COVID. There are numerous mask designs and fits, and not all masks provide the same security and protections. Depending on how they fit and how they are made, masks vary in how well they can protect you and others from getting or spreading COVID. Young children should not be expected to keep their masks properly placed and aligned all day, every day. Additionally, Robert Redfield, former head of the CDC, admitted that nothing was ever definitively done by his agency to show that masks are successful in preventing COVID-19 transmission. Alternately, I have seen a myriad of data that states mask wearing is harmful. Connecticut school districts have not been afforded the opportunity to debate or decide this issue. Yet another reason why forced mask mandates are so wrong on many levels. And I realize that the governor's mandate is going to carry on through September 30th, I believe. But I hope and pray. There are 12,000 people in an organization right now called Unmask Our Kids CT. And the numbers grow by the day. They're demonstrating all over the state, on highways, in towns. You see the signs all over the place. This is ludicrous. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me as a concerned citizen.
Hey, Greg, before we move on, I just need to say that as board members, we should allow the public to be speaking right now, since board members have the opportunity to speak about this later. I think it's more important for us as board members to listen to the public and share our opinions later in the meeting. We're taking too much time listening to our board members when we have the opportunity to speak all the time.
I understand.
I'd like to hear from public, please.
I understand, and I'm not going to let any other board members speak.
No.
Okay, Ms. Deidre Daly, please.
Hi, this is Deirdre Daly, and again, thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I actually was going to raise the issue concerning your technology policy, which I have found offensive for several years, but I think it also plays into this issue with masks. Thank you, John. because the masks are dangerous. It muzzles our children when there are pedophiles, kidnappers, or anything else that's going on in the school. Because we, as some of the parents in Region 12, and I would imagine the board members know, our region is not perfect. We have had inappropriate substitute teachers, haven't we? We have had people get into our network and reach children. We have had children with anger management issues want to see children killed or have sex with them. So let's read your technology policy, because here you are saying that our children should be masked and muzzled because you care about them. Yet your technology policy says that the region shall not be responsible for any damages suffered by the student, including those arising from unauthorized use, loss of data. Fine, but this is what bothers me. Exposure to potentially harmful or inappropriate material or people. Okay, so on one hand, every year, you want the parents to sign this statement. At the end, you say, we, the parents, also agree to hold the region harmless for any damages suffered by my child or ward, including those arising from unauthorized use, loss of data, and again, exposure to potentially harmful or inappropriate material or people. I send my kids to school emotionally, mentally, and physically in a good condition. I expect my children to come home in that same condition. There are some troubling things that do happen in our region, and we want to put it all under the rug. Yet, because certain people in our town have personal fears and anxieties over COVID, they want us vaccinated, they want us masked. That's not right. You can't make parents allow their children go to school and tell us that you take no responsibility for inappropriate persons or material that our kids come into contact with at school. And on the other hand, you want to muzzle them because some of you are afraid of catching a virus. Well, you know what? That's discrimination. It's discrimination. It's wrong. I don't know everyone's health situation, but quite frankly, it's up to each of us to take care of ourselves. Again, my kids and I have not missed a beat since this happened. I didn't complain when kids had lice, and we were not allowed to tell the parents who had the lice and was spreading it. I didn't complain when parents sent their kids to school with rotavirus. I didn't complain when the bus driver wanted my kids out of the school and not to use the no bite me stuff because my kids were getting ticks at the school. And then later on, I find out that the bus driver had her child, her daughter, and grandchildren at her house with rotavirus. And that's what made her sick. And a month and a half later, she died. Okay? Yet at the time, the school was ready to blame my kids because they had a little no bite me cream on their hand. I think you really need to get your priorities in order. You need to figure out how you're going to protect these children the proper way. You need to let parents parent. This is still the United States of America. I know there are some of you who don't believe it's the United States of America. You want us controlled. You want to have your way, and you don't want to take responsibility when you make mistakes. Well, you know what? Part of being American is taking responsibility when you make mistakes. But in the meantime, make your own choices for you and your loved ones. I take responsibility for my children. If they get COVID, whether it's at your school or elsewhere, that's my responsibility as a parent. That is not your responsibility. But I'll tell you what, if you have substitute teachers who were in Florida and known to have had inappropriate relationships with a child, that's your responsibility to make sure people like that don't get to school. And that's, I am adamantly against your technology policy and the verbiage. I was told last year that it was going to be changed. It obviously wasn't changed. I can't believe parents actually signed this. But you know what? We live in a small town, and most people forget that it is a small town. And there are a lot of people crossing the border. There are people in other towns around us that are pedophiles and have done all kinds of bad stuff. Yet we're friends with them and it's okay. And we buy their products, or we let them have our children sit on their laps, or we let them represent us. We just turn a blind eye. Well, you know what? Turn a blind eye to the virus too then, and let us take responsibility. And in the meantime, please change the policy, because no inappropriate person should come in contact with my daughters while they're in your care. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deidre. Is there anyone else, members of the public, who would like to address the board on a matter on tonight's agenda? I don't see any hands up, so I'm assuming that there is no one else who wants to address us. And if that's the case, then we will move on.
Greg, why don't you give people a chance to unmute if they want us to talk and see, because some of them you can't see pictures of.
Well, if we can't see pictures and they can't raise their hand, can they please unmute and tell me they would like to address us?
Sorry, I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anyone. All right, well, we are then going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which
Greg,
is.
can I just make a quick comment? Are we going to be able as a board to collectively talk later about this?
Well, I guess we could.
It's on the agenda. I mean, it's part of our discussion. So I just want the public to be clear that the board will be able to share how they feel later on in the meeting.
I mean, the superintendent is going to present a reopening plan, and that will include the items that were discussed here. So yeah, there'll be an opportunity for us to address it.
That's what my point is that the beginning is public comment for the public to discuss how they feel. Right. And as board members, I do want the public to know that it is then our opportunity when we discuss for the public to know where all of us stand if we choose to want to talk. That's why I think it was important to let the public discuss how they feel, because that's why we're here, to hear them. And I think it's really important that we hear them. And then later they get to hear us discuss how we collectively feel individually and as a group. I just wanted that to be clarified.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I just want to, let everyone know the reason we have the public address at the beginning is some people have to go and they have to be elsewhere. And so we do try to accommodate schedules. We've had more requests to put at the beginning than the end.
And also too, some of the questions that they propose are something that as a collectively, we can individually address if we
can.
choose to.
We can. And the reason we don't respond in the forum of the public comments is, number one, a response could lead to a dialogue. A dialogue could mean that some people don't get to make their public comment because there's not time and they have to leave. They've got a child care issue or whatever. And so that's one reason. The other reason is we have a long agenda and we try not to keep the board members who are not paid for their services, who are volunteers, here late at night. And so we're trying to get through an agenda as well. So that's one reason why we do that. I didn't want to make people think that it was a flippant reason because we're not able to address it. It's because we're trying to keep an agenda running and we're trying to respect everyone's time. All right, so I'd like to move on. The consent agenda, is there anyone who wants to take the meeting minutes of July 12 off the consent agenda to amend them or anything? If not, and I'm hearing nothing, those will be approved. We now have with us the New Milford Director of Health to make a presentation, and I've lost her now.
I'm here
Ms.
still.
Morrissey, there you are.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you all. Our superintendent asked me if I would be able to come and talk today a little bit about some of the numbers that we're seeing as far as vaccinations and cases in the towns that we cover. So, and I think that overlaps a little bit with Newtown Area Health District. So I'm going to be speaking primarily about Washington, Bridgewater, and Roxbury. So overall, I am happy to report that we are seeing really high vaccination rates compared to the rest of the area in regards to vaccinations in our 12 to 15-year-olds and then our 16 through 18-year-olds. So that's a positive. I apologize. My 5-year-old is here making silly faces at me as I'm trying to talk. So I apologize for that. In addition to that, so when we talk about our case rates for new onset of COVID-19, positive there as well, that we're not seeing the similar upticks in those 3 towns that we're seeing in some of the rest of the areas. I think that kind of matches the trend that we saw last year, that as Brookfield, New Milford, Danbury, and Newtown saw a quicker uptick in cases, those 3 towns were a little bit slower. I am anticipating that as families are returning from travel, that we're going to see a more steady increase in cases, as such as what we're seeing from those other towns that I just mentioned. Once school starts back, and I think that Superintendent Bennett did a really good job of really, in previous meetings and in her communications, really explaining what's to come. So when school goes back in, we'll be wearing masks, face coverings, and that's really a part of the governor's initiative. So his executive order goes through September 30th, which does require masking inside of all of public schools and early childhood centers. The CDC guidelines do require masking on side of school buses. So all school buses, all public transportation, children will be wearing masks on there as well. So I think that's a really good synopsis as to where we are with COVID-19 as far as our case rates, vaccinations, and what we're looking at as masking. I'm going to be here on the call, so I'm more than happy to answer any specific questions that anyone may have in regards to COVID-19 and the return of students this fall. Thank you.
Do any of the board members have questions? Director of Health. All right. I don't know. Okay, John, go ahead. John, please unmute.
Got a new computer, so I'm just working my way through it. Yes, I have a question concerning testing. Is it the just the nasal Q-tip swab or the deep throat? Would it be? And how many, is it a PCR test actually?
John, are you asking about what would be done at schools? Because at this point, we have not opted to do testing at our schools.
What would trigger possible testing then?
It's the decision of the of each district, and in consultation with Lisa and also our Director of Health in Newtown, Donna, we talked about our vaccination rates as well as the benefits to testing versus not testing. We would not be receiving staff support, which means that everything we would do would have to be done by our staff members themselves. And as we evaluated the benefits to that, we've opted not to. However, New Milford is going to be providing testing in the mornings. So if there is somebody who is indeed been exposed to somebody with COVID, to know that there's that option that's going to be made available. And that, again, is actions that the New Milford Health Department has taken. So we don't have to do that testing right on site, but we have an access point to go get people tested if they do want to have access to the test.
Okay.
Additionally, and just one of the other things, John, as we were also talking, we wouldn't force testing. So it would have to be that parents opt in to testing. And based on feedback that we've received, well, that in talking to other districts, their experience with it, some of the things that they've encountered, we're going to watch cautiously how others are doing it to see if it is an opportunity we want to provide for our families. But at that point, that's exactly what it would be an option.
Okay, Joe?
Do we have any numbers or information on infections in the 12 and under ages?
For what, this area?
Ms. Morrissey, do you have anything you can add to that?
Sure. For which population? Are you referring to the state of Connecticut, to any specific town, to the county? Because that information for the state of Connecticut as well for individual counties is on the state's website, ct.gov. They have a banner. It's, once you go to ct.gov, on the top banner, it says COVID-19 data, and they refresh that every week. And that has specific information about the number of infections that are occurring in each age group, as well as new deaths that have occurred in the state. And that's also by setting an age group.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, don't miss this opportunity. You're not going to have the health director here every day, so.
And I'm just, Greg, if it's okay with you, while people may be formulating questions, I'm just going to say I truly appreciate our Lisa making herself available to our district and to me at all hours. To know that she meets with us weekly, is also pulling together other superintendents, so that way we are making decisions that are happening within the region. So it's not just waiting till something is knocking at our door. She's providing us the data so that way we can make informed decisions. And her help to get the vaccinations available to the staff and to our students, it was Herculean. And I cannot say enough about her support and what she has availed to this district too. So thank you, Lisa.
You are more than welcome, and I cannot take the credit for any of that. We have a huge team of volunteers and a partnership with Nuvance Health that makes all of that possible. So I'm incredibly grateful for the collaboration and partnership with the district, as well as all of the partners that we all work together to make sure that we can ensure the safety and the well-being of all the students and faculty of all of our school districts. So thank you.
Okay. Mary.
I have a question. Do we know now when the vaccines will be available for under 12?
We do not. There has been some speculation and some hinting that they are going to move up the timeline for the availability of vaccines for those under 12, that it could be as early as October, but it's a moving target. And, I tell people that 4 months ago, they told us that it would probably be before the kids went back to school. Last month, they said that they were moving it to the middle of the winter. So I think it really is a moving target. And I think that really speaks to the fact that they are using all of available data to them, not just the ones that are produced by the clinical trials here in the US, but other countries' experiences in vaccinating those young populations. So I think that once we do finally get that approval, it'll be based on the fact that they had larger numbers of younger children available for that study participation.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? One question that occurs to me is we've heard a lot tonight about masks and masking. Is there anything we can do or any type of, I hear a lot about N95 masks, and then there's another one made in South Korea that I've also heard about. Should we be pushing people in the direction of these? I mean, is there any advice you can give us on how to make them more efficacious? If we're going to wear them, they might as well be as good as they can.
So I would say that I'm going to address the N95 piece because I get asked about that a lot. So I don't recommend to the general public that they wear N95s. And the reason for that is in all of the fields that we typically associate N95, so think about construction, healthcare, in situations like that, you actually have to be fitted for those. There's a fit testing that we go through, and part of that fit testing is a medical evaluation to ensure that it is safe for you to wear an N95. So I don't want people to just glibly pick up an N95 thinking that they're going to get more protection, or that there aren't potential risks involved there, and particularly for those that may have cardiac or respiratory issues is what I'm thinking about with those N95s, which is why we usually do a medical evaluation before they get fit tested for those to ensure it's the right size. For the vast majority of people, a closely fitting mask that has multiple layers to it, whether that's a KN95 or a surgical mask or a cloth mask that's multi-layered, is really going to be your best bet. Sorry, that's the 5-year-old again. So that really is the best bet. And I think really that is the piece that we really should be making sure. If you do elect to wear a cloth mask, I implore you to not be like my husband. So my husband has a really bad habit of wearing his cloth mask until I say, hey, when's the last time you washed that? So if you're wearing a cloth mask, it really is important that you do wash that, and you want to minimize as much contact as you can with the outside of your mask. So if you're thinking of it, as your filtration system, all of the microbial load, all the microbes, all the viruses, the bacteria, they're sitting on the front of your mask, and we want to minimize that as much as possible. So your mask really should be fitting comfortably enough that you don't feel the need to continuously adjust it while you're speaking and you're going about the day. So that's my advice when it comes to how to choose an appropriate mask.
Thank you very much. I think that's very helpful. Are there other questions?
I actually have one.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Lisa, I guess the question is that in terms of masks, obviously nothing is foolproof, right? In terms of not being able to contract the virus. And I think that understandably, nobody wants to wear a mask, but I guess the idea that masks don't stop the spread, of course not. But in terms of statistics or information that you may have that shows that it slows down the spread, would that be accurate?
That would be very accurate. So I have to, am I coming in okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's entirely accurate. So I always caution people, there is no one mitigation tool that is going to completely eliminate the spread of disease. If this was the case, then we would have said throw on masks, years ago. We would have completely eliminated the flu. We would have completely eliminated, the common cold. I personally hate the common cold. I hate the flu. And if I wore a mask every year, it meant I would never get it again. I probably would. So what it really comes down to is layering those mitigation strategies. So what does that mean? It means wearing your mask, getting vaccinated, socially distancing between people, trying to really manage your lifestyle so that you're taking the least amount of risks possible that you feel comfortable with. So it's not a single thing that you're going to do that's going to be, the most efficient. It's about doing multiple strategies to minimize the risk of getting COVID-19.
Okay, and I guess to piggyback on that question is, for those who are comfortable being vaccinated and make it a choice, it's the same. It's sort of, for me, at least the way that I think about it, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but obviously the purpose of the vaccine is, we all know it's not going away, obviously, right? Just like the flu. But by getting vaccinated, what we are seeing is that people are not dying at the rate that they were a year ago. I mean, that's not, opinion, that's fact, correct?
Absolutely. So
or being hospitalized.
Yep. So I actually was talking about this just last week with a group of peers, to the public. And really, when you think about your flu vaccine, we advocate people to get the flu vaccine, not so that you don't get the flu, but so that you don't have serious complications and die of the flu. When we talk about COVID-19, we need to be talking about it from the lens that we're trying to prevent serious illness such as hospitalizations and death. That's why we're promoting COVID-19 vaccinations. It's not so that you don't get it. And I have to say, as a person who had COVID-19, I had to go through my household. My youngest was a toddler, my oldest is a college age. It was a horrible experience. And me personally, if I was able to be vaccinated at the time, and my kids were able, and my husband was able to get vaccinated, so we did not have that experience, I would have done it. I've made the joke multiple times that if someone told me I had to get vaccinated every month to never get COVID-19, like how I had it in 2020, I would absolutely do that. I mean, it was that much of a game changer for myself. It was such an ordeal. And so I always tell people that I would never recommend to anyone to do something to themselves or to their family member or to their children that I myself would not do or would not recommend. So when I say things, I'm not speaking just as a local health director, as an infectious disease epidemiologist, I'm also speaking as a mom and as a wife. And as soon as, my kids and my husband were eligible for the vaccine, I was eligible before them, they were getting vaccinated. So the only one left in my household is my youngest guy, who's starting school this year. And when that approval comes in, he will be getting vaccinated as well, because I have to say, having a 4-year-old with COVID-19 was absolutely heartbreaking, because he was one of those kids that, he had a harder time with it. And I wouldn't wish that on another family. I really do wish that people would get vaccinated as it is available to them, because it is a very easy thing to say that you don't want to do something. It's a much harder thing when you see your child suffering or you see your loved one suffering because you elected to make a decision one way or another, and having those regrets. So seeing it from that perspective as a local health director, I always tell people, when you're asking me, you're biased, because don't forget, I'm talking to people during some of the worst times of their life, when they're really seeing the most tragic consequences of things. So I always share that with people.
Very good. Mary.
Lisa, thank you for sharing your personal experiences. I know you didn't have to do that, and you did, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
The local health directors are really on the line. There was an article in the New York Times earlier this year about the local health director in New York City in 1946, when a man who had come back from a foreign trip developed smallpox. And even though he had been inoculated against smallpox, and he was dead within 5 days. And this health director absolutely commanded the resources that resulted in 1 month inoculating over 6 million residents of New York against smallpox, and an epidemic was stopped in its tracks. And so believe me, you are on the front line of this. And just like the health director in New York saved a massive problem in this country, we really appreciate everything you've done to keep us safe and to keep us healthy. Are there any further discussion or comments with Lisa?
I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
To this question. Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are, Lisa, with PCR testing, but there's a lot of controversy concerning the accuracy of PCRs. Some people go, they have the test, they get a positive, and there are false negatives as well. I don't know how much you know about the origins of the PCR test, but there's a Dr. Kerry Mullins. He accepted the Nobel Prize for developing the PCR test. And he stated many times, the PCR test was never meant to be used as a diagnostic for flu or whatever. And for that matter, PCR tests can pick up the common, if you run it at enough cycles, it can pick up the common cold or other flu viruses. And if I may further elaborate, COVID-19 itself has never been isolated in any lab, the virus itself. The nearest that they can determine is this virus is a mixture of influenza A and influenza B. So when we talk about it like it's some kind of a Black Death, it's no more than a flu virus. I don't know when people are going to understand this. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Can I please address some of those comments?
Yes, feel free.
Thank you. So I would be remiss in not addressing this. So I have to say that, yes, they have been able to isolate COVID-19. That was done in early on in the pandemic. We would not be able to have vaccines that were effective against it unless we were able to accurately isolate it, grow it, and replicate it. So that's one. Two, I am actually very familiar with PCR testing. I am an infectious disease epidemiologist by trade. And that means I have a lot of experience talking about internal and external validity and really understanding what tests are meant to display, what we can learn from them, and what the errors on that. So I got to tell you, so when we talk about diagnostic testing and screening testing, there is no such thing as a test that's 100% sensitive and 100% specific in the real world. It is generally accepted that you have a really good test if your specificity and your sensitivity is over 80%. And with PCR testing, we're talking about that is typically in the high 90s. So when you ask if I'm familiar, I am very familiar with that. That also means that with any screening test, with any diagnostic test, you're going to have false positives and false negatives. That's telling you your ability to accurately predict the people who are sick and your ability to accurately predict the people who are not sick. And PCR testing is really our gold standard because those are always in the high 90s. To your claim that you're referring to about that it's picking up influenzas A, influenzas B, the common cold, and the common cold is not a single virus, it's actually multiple viruses. This is also true, but only in the instance when we're using specific types of technology, such as the BioFire respiratory virus panel, where it can test for 67 plus different types of viruses. And that's how you're able to pick up those multiple viruses. When we talk about COVID-19, it's a specific type of coronavirus, and there are lots of tests available so that we can distinguish the other types of coronaviruses, including MERS and SARS and the other ones. So I just had to address that because I feel like there was a lot of misinformation in there. And I didn't want anyone to walk away thinking that the tests aren't accurate and they're not safe because they are. I think that there was some confusion when we talk about antigen testing, antibody testing, and PCR testing. And depending on the type of testing we're using, the manufacturer of the test that we're talking about, that specificity and that sensitivity rate does change. So we have to be very specific in the nomenclature that we're using when we're describing the types of testing that we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks for your clarification, Lisa. Can you direct me or contact me at a later date to show where they isolated that virus sequence? Who and where and exactly when?
Happy to do that. They actually have plenty of information on that on the NIH as well as the FDA page. So I'm happy to forward that information to you.
Thank you.
All right. Board members have any further questions for Ms. Morrissey? All right. Okay, we are going to move on to the superintendent's update. And Lisa, I want to thank you very much, Ms. Morrissey, for being here today and for addressing these questions and for all of your support and all of the things you've done on the front line to protect us. I think public health has really shone brightly in this pandemic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate it. I know that it has been a Herculean lift, but it was not just local health departments. It was the collaboration of all the communities, the school districts, and the healthcare workers, and all of our frontline staff. So that if it wasn't for the dedication of everyone in the community, we wouldn't be seeing the positive outcomes that we're also seeing.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate everything you've done. We're going to move on to the update on COVID-19 and vaccinations from the superintendent. Megan, what do you have to add to this?
I'm telling you, it's nice to stand on the shoulder of giants right now. But to share just a couple updates, we all know that I sent that horrible email letting everybody know that we did have a COVID positive case in our district happen during our freshman orientation. I want to celebrate the efforts of our Chippewa administration who, by design of how orientation went, we did not have any contacts. So these are the moments in which I know we hear a lot of people who want the masks off, and we have people who are very passionate. We also have some very scared families who really wanted to know, well, was my child exposed? What happened? And when we were able to share those mitigation strategies and how we took into account when planning and designing so students could have the orientation that had elements of tradition while still keeping safety in mind. Again, it's a testament to our administration and their planning. So very much appreciative of that. I did also share with our communities the vaccination rates. Right now, we will continue to share the vaccination opportunities. We are not requiring our students at this time. We are certainly making certain that families know the option if it is something that they want to avail themselves. We did do a survey of our SHPOG students, since it is only students who are 12 and older who are eligible for the vaccine. And we had 267 responses to our survey. And that comes out to about 76% of those who were available to this survey. And of that, 224 indicated that they were fully vaccinated as we start school. We did have 32 who indicated that they plan to get vaccinated at some time during the school year. So that's important information for when we're designing what our environment looks like. We recognize that we are designing school differently based on the amount of mitigation that is available to any students at the different ages. So if vaccine is available and that is the choice, that is one of the mitigation strategies. Layer that with masks, layer that with social distancing. All of these things we do are those layered moments of safety. And so calculated risk is always what we're looking at. We are certainly inviting in opportunities for more normalcy, and we will certainly get into that when I talk about the reopening plan. So there's a lot that we learned last year. There were things that we realized we did that were unnecessary. Temperature screenings did not amount to being it, but with that said, we got to have a interaction with every single child every single day, take a look at them, make certain that they were okay. Personally enjoyed some of the conversations with kiddos, but we're learning and growing as we continue. It's important to note that we are currently evaluating Governor Lamont's latest executive order regarding the requiring of vaccination for school personnel. We are waiting more legal advice from this. I think this is far-reaching and trying to understand how that impacts our staff, how that impacts our operations. So more will be coming on that, but I can tell you there's differing opinions on how that will logistically occur. And as soon as I have more information, I will share that with the board. But as for right now, we did ask our staff if they would volunteer vaccination status, and we have 136 responses out of 180 staff members. Of those who responded, 98% responded that they are fully vaccinated, but we have 24% of our staff who it is unknown at this time. So again, we continue to plan. We plan for distancing. We all know that the governor's orders have us masked until September 30th, and we will certainly reevaluate. One of the cautions that I say to everyone is that how we start school in September does not mean that's how we're going to end school in June. And I think what becomes very important is that we are evolving through this. And I will tell everybody who's on the call, my goal, my hope is to be unmasked, but I don't want to rush into something before and try to capture normalcy before we can sit there and control the variables as they are. We want to get our kids into school safely. We want to make certain that we are controlling the environment and allowing more opportunities. And those only happen as we layer these strategies, as we identify the variables that we are going to test for. And, you know, again, we want to make certain that we're keeping all of our students safely educated. So as far as our updates that we have this year, we will continue to leave this as a standing agenda item. I want to make certain that we are hearing our families, that we're hearing public opinion regarding what's happening. Last year, we dealt with fear. Last year, we had a lot of unknowns. And I think now we're going to deal with some frustration, because as we start to learn and evolve, there are things that we know aren't consistent, but it is one in which we're going to continue to grow and evolve, and we will change as we continue to get more information. And we will continue to work closely with our departments of health, the CDC, our State Department of Education, our boards of education, and our families. So questions regarding the update, we will certainly get into the reopening plan later in the meeting, but just for the COVID update at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Megan. We will move on to the board chairperson's report. I just have a couple things because it's a long agenda that I want to add. I think we have had a major happening event that occurred. If you saw the news this morning, that the FDA has approved the vaccine, fully approved. Not just it had approved 3 vaccines for emergency use, and the one done by Pfizer BioNTech is now been fully approved. So it is that approval is now a formal approval. It's no longer on an emergency basis. So that may be a game changer in a variety of ways. But we continue to hope that we make progress against this disease, so we can get back to some level of normalcy if that's possible. I want to say that as far as the Chapag construction project goes for Ag Science, it is virtually complete. We have had the floors that were one of the last items have I think been almost completely installed, and we still have a couple of dribs and drabs here and there of small things that are mostly outside. But I did a site walk of the property. It is in excellent shape. We have a really stunning project here, a stunning facility, and I think that's going to be serving us well and serving our students well as we move on to really making this a vigorous science program at Chapag. So I can tell you that we will be shortly accepting the landscaping. We will be shortly, the punch list items are all done. We'll be shortly finishing the last couple of items that are on the list. And then we will be moving on, and that project will be finished. So I expect that the next time we meet, or the time after that, we should be pretty much done with this construction project. And so that that leads me to the roof and some of the other projects at Chapag. We have a great roofing company that keeps providing us with reports, visual reports of what's going on up there. We're about almost halfway, not quite to halfway finished with that, but that we hope to be finished on time this month, shortly. And then the other major projects that are ongoing continue to be done. And I think our elementary schools are in pretty good shape now with the projects that have had to be done there this summer. So that's really more or less where we are with our facilities and with that situation. So with that, that's going to be more or less the end of my report. The only thing I wanted to say is that this is this whole thing with COVID, with the response to it, with the vaccines, with the masks and everything, is obviously something that occupies our time and attention. Rest assured that we will do what we believe, and the decisions are not easy. But right now, the governor has made a decision that has made the law of the land. There will be masking in the schools until the end of September, unless that changes. That's what we will do. And the superintendent will make such decisions as she needs to make in order to make sure that our children and staff are protected. You know, it's not just the fact that you have children, potentially small children, who may not suffer the same effects of COVID as older children. But the other thing you have to remember is when those children are in the building, they're able to spread it just as easily as anybody else. And we have staff that have to be protected from that as well. It's not just the children, it's everyone that works for us, it's everyone that's part of Region 12. We're trying to keep a healthy environment. It's not easy. And there's no one, I cannot stand masks. I do not like masks at all. I don't want to see them. I hate to see them, but I think that there's something that we have to make decisions not based on what we like and don't like and what we think is a problem or not a problem. We have to make decisions based on what's going to keep people safe. And you know, so I think that that's why we've got our superintendent to make these decisions in consultation with the authorities, like the local, like Lisa, the local director of health that you heard here tonight, and like the other folks at the state health department, the CDC, and others who are involved in this. So just please understand, it's a miserable situation that we're trying to make the best of. And that we will continue to do that, and we'll continue to listen to you. And I appreciate the folks that came here tonight and talked with us. I appreciate your passion. I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your points, and we will continue to listen to you. We have not, you know, foreclosed anything, but we are listening to a lot of voices, and yours are among them. Okay, so I'm going to turn that over to the superintendent now for her report.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, I want to thank the people who came up for public comment. Your voices are important. And even if there is the moment in which we may not agree, it certainly gives us things to reflect on and to know that we need to take all of the information into consideration. I don't believe in having the last word. And so one of the things that I do want to acknowledge is that Deirdre had mentioned about the technology policy. And board members, as you know, we were trying to overhaul our policy packets in order to update and get new information and relevant. And that would have been part of the policy adoption. The delay that has happened is something that we are working through in order to provide you with a comprehensive packet. But I also don't want anyone to think that we are not true to our word and that we are not following through. I think of anything, we want to make certain that people know we're going to make mistakes and we're going to grow in these mistakes. We're going to, just like if someone's using technology, yes, there may be exposure, just like we may have students exposed in school, but that's why we purchase firewalls. And that's why we purchase all of these security equipments, is because we're doing everything to make certain that we minimize, but we certainly let people know that there's a chance it might happen. And so I agree that there's a lot of things that we want to introduce as far as freedoms, but it is a calculated risk, and those are what we are constantly evaluating against. I also appreciate people sharing some of the information that they have gathered. I appreciate when people are sending that to me over email. I read every piece of information that comes, and some are in direct conflict with one another, but we certainly take our guidance from, as you heard Lisa, the epidemiologists and those who are on the forefront of this fight against COVID. And I'm going to say, as we look back in the rearview mirror, there were things that we were hyper cautious of, and we start to look at how do we make adjustments for what we know is a safer option. So with all of that, I'm also going to share some really good things that happened right now this summer. I want to applaud all of our staff who worked at our kindergarten readiness program. We had 25 kindergartners who unfortunately were not able to experience REACH last year, got 6 weeks of kindergarten camp. And I will tell you, they were able to have puppet shows, and they were able to go out and have gym classes, and they were able to have fun learning. this year. Additionally, not just being at Washington Primary where they were housed, we took them on field trips to their new schools. So they were able to go to Burnham, they were able to go to Booth Free, they were able to play in the playgrounds there. So for us, this wasn't just about the teaching and learning, it was about getting our students comfortable, getting them emotionally ready to handle coming into kindergarten. And I'm going to tell you, I am so happy that we made this a 2-year program because it really was met with some success and joyful learning. So I do want to also update the board with our sheep and copper that was in the water at the barn. Don O'Leary has been working diligently on the copper levels to make certain that those fall well below what is the safe level for our sheep and any animals in the barn. So he was able to raise the pH level and add a filtration system. And with constant flow, we have gotten the copper levels far below what would even be the expected safe amount for our sheep. So I have to say that there was some really good learning, not just for our students, but for us as, caring for our animals and making some of those decisions. So we are happy to welcome back our sheep in November, but before our sheep come, we are excited that our horses will be here next week. Gulliver will be returning to us. Gulliver was a fan favorite. And I'm told that our second horse that we are picking out needs a little bit more fire in its belly because our students have grown and now can handle a horse that has a little bit more, excuse the term, giddy up. So we are excited about that, as well as thankful and grateful for the community members who have been working with us. We also, and Don Shells, I'm going to see you nod on this because just today we found out that our partnership from Little Britches will continue again this year. And so it is a mutually beneficial relationship. So our students are growing, our program is growing, and thank you to Annie Hermans for fostering this partnership. So very excited for their return. Greg shared some of the updates with the facility regarding our agri-science floors that now have some more grit to it. So it feels like a safer walk, both for animals and for humans. I want to thank Greg because he drove to the ends of the earth in order to test out the different floors to make certain he was asking about epoxy levels and what's the leveling that we have to have. But I will tell you the result right now feels safer and is a higher quality product. So I really thank the relationship and the exploration on that. I do want to share with the board, our agri-science numbers have dropped a bit. We now have 123 students who are signed up for next year. I know that we are feeling that impact of COVID and some students not wanting to travel, or the demands of how do I get my agriculture hours in the time of COVID. And so our agri-science team is really working together with the Chippewa administration to figure out how we make certain we stabilize our population, to make certain that over the summer we're doing some socials so that way the students remain excited and interested in coming to Chippewa, because the oohs and ahs need to continue. And it is something that we are very aware of. We have exceeded our numbers in our projections, but every student we lose feels like a lost opportunity. And so it's something that we are working very, very diligently on. Other thing to update the board on is that our sports teams will be running a full season this fall. I am very happy to share that all of our fall sports are outdoors. So we welcome spectators to come cheer on our students. We will give the reminders for some social distance, but I think our students are going to be really excited to see the crowds coming in to celebrate their achievements. And I want to thank our administrative team. They really have been doing some really heavy lifting to make certain that they are operationalizing our plans, to making certain that they're finding ways to introduce opportunities rather than making it feel like limitations coming into the school year. I want to thank our custodians and maintenance workers because they are tireless right now. They are moving more things than I can tell you. I mean, we're talking about floors. Every time a floor has to get redone, they have to take away lab tables to only put them back. They have to take away all of the shelving only to put it back. Their efforts this summer have had to be double what it is usually due to the repairs that have been necessary. And, you know, as we talk about, and we have done so much in our facilities to build them up, the planetarium, well, that meant they had to clear out all of the planetarium and figure out where we were going to put all of the storage. And they've done it because it means more opportunities for kids. And so I really, truly appreciate all of that. And I want to thank the teachers who are coming in, volunteering their time because they just want to make certain that the year feels special, preparing those lessons. And I know that it is more exciting because students will be in front of them. I know we don't have the remote option. And we are finding that students' achievement is better when they are in person. And so we really want to capitalize on all of the opportunities we have when students are back in school. So at that time, I'm going to stop and address any questions regarding my update.
Mary?
Well, on the last time we had a board meeting and the public spoke, there was one person who said, what if we all band together and send our children without masks? I know we have a policy. So Megan, could you just make public what that policy would be if somebody sends their children without a mask and what would happen? Just so that so that they know.
Well, I will tell you, one of the things we work very hard to do is
Megan, before you start, do you want to defer that to the reopening plan? Because that seems to be, that's probably where that best ought to be addressed.
I'm happy to do that then. That's up to you.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to address it then because it's a more comprehensive presentation rather than have you do a little bit here and then hit it again on that plan. I think it'd be more efficient to do it all at once. John, you have a question.
Yeah, Megan, you mentioned that we had a slight loss in population at the ag school. What grade levels were that? Was that in?
We saw students who didn't even come into our doors. We lost a few students before they started in the program. And then we did have some at the 10th grade and the 11th grade. So there was a little bit of a variety. We had done exit interviews with every student. And we had some good learning for us ourselves too. And that's where recognizing we have to hold more socials over the summer and things that keep up that interest of coming to Chippewa. I think that's important for us to make certain that we don't have attrition.
Yeah, in all my research prior to ag, I did find out that it's pretty typical in every ag school system. Population, is changing, ever changing.
It is, and it's one that I think a sign of our good program and our program running well is when we're able to retain our students and student populations. So we want to make certain that, for me, I like when we own the problem because then we create the solutions. When you leave things to chance, then you can't fix it.
Jen?
Can you just tell me what the number was and what it is now? I know you said it went to, was it 123? What was it before?
We had started at a high of 142 and now down to 123.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, most of them were outside of the district, or were there also students within Region 12 that?
There were students within Region 12.
Okay.
I think, quite frankly, in a conversation that I had with a parent, she said, it's challenging when they think of 150 SAE hours, plus 30 hours of community service to graduate, plus many of them going for confirmation and other things that they're going to have to do as well. for some of them, well, she was speaking specifically for herself, and sporting, it was trying to make it all work. And
Right.
so it was the excitement of the program and what it was going to be.
Yeah.
But our program is also about building students' facilities to be in the agri-science and agricultural world. So finding that balance and figuring out how to help our students achieve all of those is also good learning for us.
Well, I think it's really important too, because part of the idea of having agri-science was the program, obviously, but also incorporating these students into the community of Chippewa and having them be a part of the sports programs and the music program and the clubs. And so it is really important that we try to find a way to allow the students to still participate in the after school activities. And I know that it's difficult because they have so much on their plate to begin with.
And Jen, you're absolutely right. And, you know, I'm always struck by one of the comments from one of our seniors who graduated, and they said, at some point, I'm done being the star of every play and starting on the soccer field and try, you know, it's trying to do everything because we're a small school and getting a taste of everything. And sometimes having to be a little bit more selective is a challenge. And it's all of those things. So again, the moment that we say, oh, we got to fix that because we want people to feel comfortable, and how do we help them manage that time?
Right.
Just as important. And even as much as we were talking, Mike Croft and Don Shells and I, about how do we help them get SAE hours when they first come to school and caring for the animals and not relying on a barn manager, because those are things that help them get those hours in and makes it feel less overwhelming.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I see no other questions, so
I'm going to go on and talk about the appointments
yeah.
because we want to make certain that we celebrate all of our new hires that are coming on board. So we want to welcome Sarah Belanger to be our library clerk at Washington Primary. For those who know Sarah, she has been very active in the Washington Primary PTO. So we finally have recruited her into the employment and helping out in our library. We welcome back Melissa Fay as the educational assistant for Booth Free School. She was a special education para and has returned to us as an educational assistant. We welcome Robert Gannon as the building substitute for Chippewa. Caitlin Hollowell will be a third grade long-term substitute at Washington Primary School, covering a maternity leave for the start of the school year. We welcome back Monique Opal. She will be working with our instrumental programs across the district. So one of the things that we had heard from our Booth Free families was there was constantly a rotation of the music teacher because it was a part-time. And so now we've reconfigured so that way we share our vocal music teacher with all three schools, and now we have an instrumental teacher with all three schools. So that'll introduce more stability in our schools. We welcome Courtney Savino, who is the building substitute at Chippewa Valley School. I do know that she's certified English teacher and very interested from learning from our humanities department. We welcome Rosalinda Schneider. Most of us know her as Linda Schneider, and she will be the long-term intervention substitute at Booth Free School. Linda's been very active in our PTOs and in our community, so we're glad that she's going to be helping us within our schools as well. We welcome Kimberly Schramm. Kimberly had actually worked with us last year in spring and has happily taken the position as the kindergarten teacher at Washington Primary. We welcome back Ken Schultz, who will be paraprofessional at Washington and Chippewa Valley School for us to start the school year. And Vincent Tranquito, who is a PE teacher for us at Chippewa. And also Jenna Williams, who is a building substitute for us at Booth Free School. I can tell you that there is a wonderful energy for each one of our new hires, and our building administrators really picked some very enthusiastic people who chose to come to Region 12, and we are honored.
Very good. Thank you very much, Megan. Let's move on to Treasurer's Report. John, do you have anything for us?
Just a few quick things. Thursday, I went down and reviewed the invoices that were paid over the past 2 months. And one of the major payments was to United Roofing, who's doing the remediation of the Shippog Valley roof. Incidentally, every day they send Megan and people, and Megan forwards the reports, including video and photos of exactly what is done on a particular day, how it's done, and even the reasons why it's done. And it's a really good recorded history of what went on that roof. So, you know, I just marvel at the fact that they're standing behind their warranty so graciously. And I see that O&G also received a pretty huge payment. I think they're ending we're ending our debt to them, I guess, shortly. And I also saw the purchase of 37 new iPads and additionally 250 new Chromebooks. So looking forward to getting those out to the students and those who will be the recipients, and will even benefit the learning in the school year to come. That's about it.
Thank you, John. I guess the next item on the agenda are committee reports, and there's only one, that's labor negotiations. I will tell you that this will be the subject of a executive session tonight, because we have reached some tentative agreements with our custodians and our nurses unions. And so we will be talking about those tonight. So more to come, and probably taking action on the next executive session. We'll go on to new business and updates. Now, the reopening plan for 2021-22. Have at it.
Nobody else wants to do this? All right. So if it's okay with everyone and you'll indulge me, I'm just going to share my screen just so that way we're looking at it together. And we can certainly see the reopening plan that we have before us. So what you're going to see is we kept the same format. I want to make certain that as families are comparing what last year looked like and this year looked like, there's a direct comparison that they can draw. As I mentioned in the update, and as far as COVID's update, it's also important to talk about what you don't see in here. So things that you won't see in our reopening plan, cohorting. You also don't see remote learning, and you don't see temperature screening. You purposely don't see them because of the fact that we are seeking to do a full year in person. And I'm going to talk about what that's going to look like, because I think we've proven that we are able to remain in school, and whether or not we have to reconfigure our logistics and location of how students are placed, we can certainly educate our students in person. So one of the things that we do is I recognize this is 18 pages, and I'm really proud of the 18 pages, but I don't think everybody wants to read 18 pages. So we do provide the abridged version in here, and this is the simple A to Z. Here's what you need to know when going back to school. So we take them through attendance, we take them through bus, we take them through the cafeteria, and just give that overview of what to expect. So I'm certain you can guess M has masking, Q has quarantine. And so as I walk us through that, anybody who just wants to have the cheat sheet, that abridged reopening plan is where you can get the information. One of the other things that you're going to notice is that this document is titled a reopening plan. We needed to have this in place because this is what the federal government requires in order for you to get your ESSER funding. It's called reopening because this is a nationwide expectation and many schools in the nation were not open. So even though ours is reopening, I'm just going to say we were open and we're staying open. So that's just our shameless plug to say that our teachers are amazing and kept our doors open last year. So moving down through the presentation, I think it's important that our community knows what our priorities are. Health and safety of children is our priority. Educational access and equity is our priority. Making certain that educational practices are sound and proven is our priority. We will focus a great deal of attention this year on our instructional practices and trying to make certain that we teach children how to communicate again. We recognize cost, and our statement has been, if we are not investing in innovation, then we're going to find ways to be resourceful. So either we are saving our taxpayers' money or we are investing because we are going to do something to innovate education. And that is the way that we've operated our plan. And of course, we want our students to be comfortable, but we recognize that comfort is a luxury, and we want to make certain that we're striving for that luxury. So learning phases, and this is where, as I said to you, the one you will not see is remote learning. Phase 1, which is our full return to school. And Mary, you asked that question, what happens at the door? We are greeting students at the door, and students need to be masked. We also want to make certain that students are able to keep their dignity. We will have masks available and offer a student a mask so they can enter our buildings. If they are not able to enter into our buildings, we do have the room where for COVID isolation, we would go and we would call their parents and have them come pick up that child. So in order to enter the school, we do need the kids masked. So in our full return to school, students will be greeted, but not with the thermometer. They're going to be greeted by staff helping getting our students into the buildings. They will be monitored this year at Chippewa. Don Shells and Mike Croft have found ways to allow students to utilize the mall again under supervision. So this way our students can have a little bit more of relaxation and social time. And we will have people who will be around reminding of social distancing, and our students will be masked in order to invite that opportunity to them. Students will move from being 6 feet to being 3 feet within the classroom. Learning from last year was that 6 feet, and we watched, and we certainly provided our data of how many students we quarantined and how many had signs of COVID when they were in quarantine. And what they found is that it was safe to close it from 6 feet to 3 feet. Now, we always say that space is of a premium, but it's also important that we are watching for those educational opportunities, and 3 feet will afford us more educational opportunities. We will have music lessons. Music does continue to need additional space between the players. We will utilize the outdoors. Again, our towns have provided tents to us as well as pavilions and outdoor learning opportunities. Our students can be unmasked when outdoors. That includes at recess time and during learning, that's outdoors. So we want our students unmasked as much as possible. So we will have outdoor learning time. It's very nice to have a mask break where the teacher is reading to the student and it's in the outdoors. So we will certainly capitalize on those. You will notice that Chippewa is going back to their 7-period schedule. Block schedule was done last year as a response to COVID to reduce the transitions in the hallway. However, if we do move to block scheduling, that has to be designed. We have to look into union negotiations. It can't just be the knee-jerk reaction. We made the decision to block schedule because we reduced travel. Now that we know that we can have that travel and we can control for that, we will have the 7-period schedule as we start to investigate new schedules for Chippewa. So phase 2, if indeed we start to see our conditions with more spread in our communities, if we see that our 3 feet is landing to more spread of COVID in our schools, we will go to phase 2. We lived phase 2 last year. And that's how we know that that is safe. And so in as much as we are trying to capture space, we also have the ability to pull the ripcord if it was a step too far. Notice it doesn't shift to hybrid. Notice nowhere in this plan do we shift to remote learning. Our goal is to make certain that we are providing in-person learning, and we would adjust to what we did last year if we do see that there's spread or unsafe conditions. So health and safety at home, we're not taking temperatures. We do ask families to make certain they are not sending sick children to school. And one of the statements I'm going to say to our families is, not every time a child is sick, it's COVID. But I'm still going to say, if your child is sick, please keep them home. We actually saw less flu last year. We saw less strep last year. And some of that is because our families were very diligent about health and sending healthy children to school. So it is one that we're going to ask that continues. We're not out of the woods. And so to make certain that our students are being screened and monitored at home, help with our community safety. Again, schools will not be taking temperatures. And so going into the schools and what it's going to look like, the CDC said we can go back to regular cleaning. I think one of our fears last year was when you do disinfectant, as much as we do disinfectant, you're also killing some of the healthy that exists on desks, etc. So we will be going towards some of those back to the green cleanings, regular cleaning, but it is not going to be the way that it was this past year. So not as frequent with the disinfecting use. We will make available wipes in every single classroom. We will make available hand sanitizer in every single classroom. So, but it is one where we did learn and we recognize how COVID spread occurs and what are some of the safe practices, which is just regular cleaning. Ventilation, again, we shared last year. We were very fortunate in our time that we replaced the HVAC units at Chippewa. And so we really benefited from the improved air quality. We also improved because this board had the foresight to invest in air conditioners in our elementary schools. So we still know that we're going to be allowing for fresh air. We're going to have windows open. And as far as if a door is open for that fresh air, it must be monitored. And it was one, and actually some of our community members did note, we also have to be careful with some of the safety that is just knowing that we don't want anybody just walking into our school buildings. So we have made certain that if the doors are open, we do ask our troopers to be present. We are taking extra safety steps, but fresh air is king. And we're trying to capitalize on that as much as possible. We still will not use the mouth dispensing water fountains. Those are icky even when it is perfectly safe environment, but we are also going to be allowing students to fill their own water bottles and take some of those initiatives. We will have the nurse's office for regular visits, but we will also have, if there are symptoms of COVID, we will have a separate nurse's office that is isolated. So that way students can feel safe going to their nurse as they need. So as we joked with our elementary students, there's the boo-boo office, and then there's the I'm feeling stuffy office. For attendance, we will continue to monitor for attendance because we want to make certain we're reporting. We are watching for trends that may start to happen. I cannot thank our community members enough as they disclosed when they did have COVID positive cases because it allowed us to take action quickly as needed. But some of this also happened because our nurses and our counselors were following up if students were not in attendance. That face covering and masks, again, sharing with everybody that we are using the protocols that are enforced in the executive order at this time. We will continue to use the guidance of our Department of Health, our State Department of Education, CDC. But again, and I can't say this enough, our goal is not to have the masks. You know, we will be outdoors in order to make certain we can capitalize on learning opportunities that happen outdoors. So that way kids can see our mouths. We can make certain that those phonics lessons are happening. It's very hard to understand the S sound when you're masked. So we're watching for those opportunities. But as far as students, when they are out at recess, they will be permitted to be without masks. If we are going to encourage our PE teachers to get those kids outside and being able to be unmasked in that activity. And I do put in this all of the orders so that way anybody who wants to track and follow how we're making these decisions, transparency is very important to us. We talked about social distancing being from 6 feet to 3 feet, and we will certainly use that for any of our contact tracing. Last year, we did not budge on the 6 feet because we did not want to unnecessarily quarantine more students than we had to. So knowing that the quarantine regulations have changed for students from going from 6 feet to 3 feet is why we felt comfortable. So that way we're not denying anybody an education. This year, without having that remote access to learning, I do not want to have students outside of school more than necessary, which brings us right to quarantine. This year, quarantine is 10 days. If the person remains asymptomatic. If the person is fully vaccinated, they are exempt from quarantine. However, they should be taking the additional precautions, keeping the mask on at all times, even when outdoors, to just make certain that there's the additional layers of safety. It is also important to note that if someone wants to reduce the quarantine time to 7 days, they can do that by getting a PCR test after the 5th day. So after the 5th day, if they present a negative PCR test, they can come back to school on a 7-day quarantine and not the 10th. Now, we have that for what is education. We have that for what is happening within the classrooms. Athletes, we are following the CIAC, and that they are a 14-day quarantine from sports. So a student may return to school and still have to wait 4 days before we can put them on the field. I thought the CIAC actually did a wonderful job with their plan this year, explaining the difference between what they considered a mild COVID case, a moderate, and a severe. So that way our coaches know when it is safe to have our athletes return to play after the sickness. So again, talking about remote learning, we will not have the remote learning option for our families. And unfortunately, the State Department of Education took away our ability to have digital snow days. That is no longer an option. The state requires 180 days of in-person learning. If a student is placed on quarantine on a case-by-case basis, we may look at some remote opportunities. However, we are going to utilize our tutors and asynchronous learning to make certain that we can support our students who may be put into a quarantine situation. We're talking about lunches. We will have lunches in the cafeteria. There's no longer capacity limits. However, spacing is what we're watching for. In as much as I want to say that it was great, we had different stations where students would pick up their lunches. they were congregating, waiting for their lunches to get picked up. So I don't want to pretend that it was always the best measure, but we watched for what were opportunities. And with our cafeteria, working with our new partners at Advance, we have established, and I thank Nicole Grant for establishing how to have safer lunch distributions. So that will be in effect. Lunches remain free this year to our students. And so we will continue to have the lunch program that we were able to use last year, again, for our elementary schools. And we talked about recess already. We can go through, and the cleaning practices I've highlighted. As far as learning materials, we have designed for individualized learning materials as much as possible to start the school year. Students will be able to use their lockers. I know that's a big deal. Like, I know it seems little to us, but like for our students, it's that feeling of they've got a space in the schools. We will monitor for distance in that, but it is one that we know that the supplies themselves, we're still going to hold that variable as an independent. As far as our curriculum and instruction, we are focused on accelerating learning. We will be taking our students' data on how they did. The Smarter Balanced Assessment scores will be coming out next week. I can tell you that in comparison to other districts, Region 12 fared pretty well. And what the State Department realized is that districts that had in-person learning had higher achievement levels on standardized tests. So it is something that we recognize. Now, I don't want to make it sound like we did really great compared to how we usually do. We did not have a great uptick. However, we do have, by comparison, we do have some steady learning that occurred, but not to the rate that we've seen in the past. So we will continue to use social emotional guidelines. Our students are going through trauma, and we understand that. And so whereas we will continue to push them, we want to prepare them. It is not pushing without a sensitivity to frustration points. So we will continue to watch for that. We will continue to work with our students who have special needs. This year, we will be having some meetings. If families would like to have in-person meetings, we will make that available to our families. Some families have said they prefer Zooming because they could do it at work and it didn't create disruptions in their day. So we will certainly work with our families on what is their most comfortable means of communicating and discussing their child's progress and next steps. It is important that you recognize that our buses still fall under what is public transportation, so everyone does need to be masked up. The ridership is one person per seat. We will have the windows down to allow for ventilation in the buses. There will be assigned seating, but we did introduce the late bus back this year. So we know that that was something that our family needs, knowing that cohorting is a mitigation strategy, but if we layer the other ones on top of it, there were enough safety measures that we are able to bring back that convenience for our families. We are having our families who want to do drop off. We will certainly make certain we've got the line for the drop off. We are asking our families, don't get to the school too soon, because we are finding that when they line up for pickup, it can go down the street and it can actually block out our buses. So we will be giving some gentle reminders to our families as we start the school year that if you do choose to pick up or drop off your child, that coming at the end of the day is important. And we also are making certain that time on learning is sacred. The moment our students see the buses line up or parents start to show up, they shut down. And we want bell-to-bell learning. So we're asking our families to please not get there too early. It's not even good to have the exhausts flowing around the students when I've got the windows open as it is. So we're asking for some additional accommodations. We are looking for times and opportunities that we can start introducing volunteers. It is not yet. And we will certainly let everyone know the moment that we're able to safely welcome people back in. But we are looking to do things like events. Right now, we are planning for our ice cream social at the elementary schools. Those will be outside. They will be individually packaged. They will get a little package of gummy bears, like take it and go. But it is one to say, we're going to try. We're going to take it to introducing things where we can safely, but we ask that people stick with us as we gradually introduce the safer ways to be in school. I really don't want to take away all safety precautions and then we're all out of school because we went too far too fast. So please know we're trying. We are working with our PTOs. You also have to know our PTOs are responsible for contact tracing if something happens at their events. They themselves are taking on extra responsibilities, but it is one that we're all going to work together because we want to make certain that our students have as much of an experience of school that we can give them that introduces the joy that they deserve. Technology, and John, you shared, and I'm so glad you said it. We do have one-to-one for our elementary K1. We'll have iPads because that is a consumer tool. We are now one-to-one with iPads for all kindergartners and first graders. And we are one-to-one for 2nd through 12th graders for our Chromebooks. And that was something this board started well before the pandemic. And so to know that we are able to now have these devices that support the learning is something that we're capturing on. So with all of that said, the rest is all about the references. I want to make certain that people know, fact check, do homework. I welcome all information that people have and we'll consider it, and we put it out to our experts for them to evaluate as well. But this plan is going to be ever evolving. How we start in September is not how we're going to end in June. So it's important that we start as safely as possible in September. So at this time, I will accept any questions or comments.
Docker, I'll go first. Greg, do you mind if I start? Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay.
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do you mind if I just jump in while?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just was taking a few notes, and first of all, Megan, I can't even imagine how you have to consider every nook and cranny. So kudos to you for the 18 pages. I mean, it's really remarkable. There's just so much detail. And yet I also feel like as much as we're still in the thick of this, there's such light, you know. I mean, it breaks my heart to say the kids can be outside and not have their masks. And that's a huge a reason to celebrate, which is absurd, but fact, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you. And being 3 feet versus 6, again, another victory. Pathetic, but true. So thank you.
Thank you for celebrating our mediocrity. Yes, you're right. It is. It's
things that just.
I'm going to tell you, the fact that our kids can throw a ball to one another is exciting for them.
I'm right there with you. But I feel like this is an opportunity for board members to kind of comment and share, especially because I do think it's so important to listen to the public and to hear what they have to say. And it's very dicey, right? Because it feels like it's there seems to be 2 teams, and that's really hard to navigate, whether it's personal and it all feels really personal. So I just want to start with Mr. And forgive me if I'm saying his last name wrong. Is it Orleski? Something he said, which I completely agree with, which was a huge success, that being Region 12, being one of the only districts in the state to be full-time, to be in the school, in the classroom, all year last year was a huge success. And I think that we have a remarkable faculty and administration to be able to have done that. So I applaud and I agree, like what a huge, huge success for us. And I also think that, you know, we also have to be super, and at least as a board member, and I can't even imagine, Megan, because I think about you and I say this to you all the time, it's hard enough as a parent to have to decide what's in the best interest for your family. But when you are responsible for every family, that becomes really challenging, because then it's not just your own personal, it's everybody, which makes it even harder. And so I think I deeply respect personal choice. It is just part of who I am. I deeply respect those that choose to not vaccinate their children, because it's a deeply personal choice, just as much as I deeply respect those that decide that they want to vaccinate. I just think that as a board of education and as a superintendent, we have to be mindful of every student. And even though we have a lot of parents coming to the board meetings speaking publicly about not the importance of not masking children, which I completely agree with. There's every reason why children should not be masked. It is not healthy. It is for their academic success, for their mental capabilities. I mean, there's so many reasons why, but it is in fact the best way to try to keep everybody safe. It's not ideal. It's not a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. It's not a cure. And so as a board of education and a superintendent, it is the responsibility to take care of not your child, but every child. That's the bottom line. I just feel that and I'm imagining, Megan, even though there are, and I guess my question to you is are there a lot of parents reaching out to you privately that want their children to wear masks coming to school?
I have families who are upset that I'm letting kids be outside without masks. They don't understand how that's safe, you know, how that's going to be managed. We have families who are on both sides of this. We've seen an increase in homeschooling requests.
Yeah.
And some of it is scared of the Delta variant, and some of it is, I don't want to mask my child. So I can say that we're hearing both sides, but we are hearing from families who are saying that they want masks, and we are hearing from families who have compromised family members who are very worried about the return to school. So yes, we're hearing.
And I think that that's a really important factor, is that we have parents and families on both sides of the aisle who feel really strongly. And I think that it's really difficult to make everybody happy, which is why, again, it's a deeply personal choice. When John said, you know, we could be losing students, that's devastating to me to think about students being pulled out of the region. I don't want to lose one student, but I also deeply respect parents' choices to do what's in their best interest for their family. That is freedom of choice. And although we want to make everybody happy, it is virtually impossible in the midst of this horrible situation to do that, and to do it where you're going to meet everybody's needs. And so you have to keep, in fact, that you cannot cure this with a mask, but you can slow it down. And for those, that is what is in our best, that is what we need to worry about collectively. Is it the ideal? No, it's not, but I just need to share that. But I do really appreciate, and I think it's really important to know that I don't want to see these children wearing masks either. I don't want to see my children wearing masks. Nobody does, but this is where we are. So I just needed to say that, because I do think that that's really important. And I just think that there are a lot of successes, full in-class learning, sports programs, music programs, all of those things that we lacked last year that we're able to really engage in this year, I feel like are those successes that we have to at least focus on. So that's all I want to say.
All right. Does anyone else care to question or weigh in? Pete, you're please if you want to talk, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm getting tired of listening to the mask issue by board members and by parents. It's all verbiage. If you read Shipman and Goodwin's memorandum, it explains why we're wearing masks. And for people and board members to massage this issue is sheer stupidity. There is no choice. Every board member got a copy of the memorandum from Shipman and Goodwin. It is a state mandate as well as a local mandate. And I don't understand why the board is having trouble getting through to everybody. There is no choice. You have no choice. I don't really care what board members think about mask wearing because it doesn't matter what they think. And somehow you got to get that message through to the parental community. Perhaps the superintendent should mail Shipman and Goodwin's memorandum to every parent in the district and to the board members who obviously haven't read it, that there is no choice. Their opinion is useless.
Okay. Mary?
Region 12 is a public school system. And we also have a public health office and community that Megan is listening to. We have heard from the people that want to unmask their kids. Okay. But I think the silent majority are really saying, well, this has to be done. Like Megan said, and Jen said, I don't want to wear a mask. Greg said the same thing, but we do it because we want to protect not only ourselves, but other people, because we care about other people. The amount of misinformation out about COVID, about masks, about vaccinations is staggering. Some of the things that I hear, I just cannot even believe that people would believe this stuff, but they do. And sometimes for me, it hits very close to home, and I'm really sorry about that. But this is a public school, and we must listen to the public health office. And this is where we are, whether we like it or not, as Pete says, this is what we have to do. So it's Megan's decision to make, and I back her completely. She always thinks about things 100%. She wants to do the best for our children. She wants to keep them safe. Their well-being is always paramount in her mind, and I will back her from here to forever. So there you go. There you have it. Thank you, Megan.
Okay. Alex, did you have something to say? I saw your hand up.
Does the board have to take a vote on this mask issue or not?
No. No, it's a matter of law.
Right.
Our
Matter of
council
law.
told us it's the law of the state of Connecticut that every student will be masked, everybody in a public school building. I mean, another reason for doing a remote meeting is if you think that it's hard to communicate in many ways, it's also hard to conduct a meeting with masks on because you can't see people, you can't hear people. You're right, it's a pain in the neck. I think all these points have been brought out, but if we had our meeting at Chippewa tonight, we would have all had to be masked because every adult, every child, every person entering a public school building must be wearing a mask. And that is the law until September 30.
So what you're telling me then is it's not Megan's choice either. It's above that level.
No, it's not her call at this point, but she's making a plan because at some point the state, look, one of three things is going to happen. Either the governor is going to extend his order past the 30th of September, and we're not going to have any choice. Or the governor is going to rescind his order before the 30th, and then we're going to have to make a decision as to what we do. Or the governor is going to just let the order expire, in which case we're going to have to make a decision on what we do. So that's the reason why we're thinking about it and talking about it. But it's Megan's call, and I think that we'll have to see how things develop.
Well, no, now you said it's Megan's call.
It is. She's the CEO of the district. She is the superintendent of schools. She makes the call. Now, I mean, have boards overruled superintendents? Yes. But you got to think long and hard before you do that, right?
I just
Just
want to
look
know
at that
where,
Shipman and Goodwin letter.
I just want to know where the buck stops. Is it with us or with it Megan or is it with the state?
Right now, it's with the state.
Okay.
So
then-
at that point, if Chipman's letter was sharing with boards of education, if the decision is made not to follow the executive order, which is law right now, what the repercussions are. And
No,
that was-
and I got that. I read it carefully. I assure you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Lisa.
Now I just want to say and thank Megan for your very thoughtful and comprehensive plan. I've sat here now for almost 3 hours listening to the mask controversy and everything. And Pete, I know you're tired of hearing about it. Believe me, I am tired of talking about COVID and the masks, but that is our job as board members to listen to our constituents and to listen to their fears and their problems and work with them. So although you're tired of it, it's our job. And I think we need to respect what people have to say and to say that they have no choice. I mean, we have a right to speak our opinions. And do I want the masks? Absolutely not. But at this point, and I agree with everything that Jen said, we don't really, we need to do this. And I go back and forth in my mind all the time. And I know Megan has not taken this lightly, and either have our other board members, but that is our job. And we have to sit here and we're going to listen and we're going to talk about it as long as we have to. So, you know, for the people that spoke, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I too am against masks, but we have to wear them right now. So hopefully things will change by September 30th. And I know that our superintendent will make the right decision and the board will stand behind her. So, so anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Megan, for your plan.
Okay. Anyone else have a question or comment they would like to add? I'm sorry, I saw a hand go up. John.
Yeah, just a few more thoughts. There are examples throughout history of mandates that come down from one person, be it a king, a dictator, a tyrannical leader. And most of the time, that mandate for that society did not end well. I think, you know, that, and there are states that don't have any mandates. So, and things are working out. History will record the results. But the autonomy should, you know, and I'm glad there's debate. I'm glad there's pushback. Everyone has a voice in this, especially the parents and the children. And you know, when you take away the autonomy from a town or a school district and put it in the hands of one man, who, by the way, wife is heavily invested in a hedge fund that finances the PCR testing. That's Annie Lamont, by the way. The Lamonts are reaping lots of profits off of every PCR test that's given. I'm sorry. It's when you, and Mary is right. People should become more informed as to exactly what happens when a COVID molecule leaves someone's mouth. By the way, they're smaller than a molecule from an odor, a perfume odor, or a rotten egg odor. The molecule of a PCR propulsion, whatever you want to call it, is actually smaller. So they do find their way through masks, around masks, onto the face. The people wipes their face, they put it on their nose. Masking is not the solution. And If you want a mask, put them on. Go to school with them on. If you don't want to, that's your right. And we're taking away people's liberties. Civil liberties are at stake here. Surrender them, and what does society become? Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have Justin?
I think in response to John's comment, I think that's a dangerous, I mean, that's a slippery slope. You know, I think it's a mistake to say that we're you know, tyrannical and taking away liberties here. I mean, I think at the root, what we're doing is what's in the best interest of everyone here. And, you know, I spent a lot of my time thinking about what the root cause of all of the, you know, anti-mask is. And to me, it just, there's two things. You know, number one, we're not doing enough critical thinking, teaching in schools. And, you know, honestly, I feel like so much of this is just people are being told something they don't, they're being told something that they don't agree with and reacting, you know, like a petulant child here. I don't know. It's something I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to stop before I offend more of you guys. But, you know, I'd say to compare this to, you know, some of the most evil dictators and tyrants in world history is just beyond hyperbole. It makes no sense to me. And, you know, I think we need to check how we react to being told to do something that's in the best interest of humanity. That's all.
You know, Greg, you listening?
Pete and then Mary.
Do you ever hear the 10 Commandments? What are we going to do? Rebel against them? I mean, everybody's got an issue with everything, whether it's COVID or the 10 Commandments or whatever it is. All you hear is complaints, complaints, and complaints. You have laws. Heaven has laws. Earth has laws. Societies have laws. Towns have laws. And you are a member of society that has laws. So you have to make a decision. Are you going to obey them or not obey them? That's how simple the issue is. And people keep massaging verbiage. I mean, it's enough to make you throw up. Make a decision. The state made a decision. Do you agree or not? If you don't agree, well, then you've got one option. You cannot do what they say and wind up suffering the consequences. I mean, people keep massaging this issue of freedom, free to make their decisions. You're part of a society. The society writes laws. It makes decisions, towns, companies, everything. And you live in a society that's structured, that's orderly. And there will always be people who disagree with what you're employing. But this issue is getting over-massaged. It is what it is. And you have to make that decision. Are we going to live by the rules that the state draws up? And we elect the people who write these laws. So if you don't like the laws they write, unelect them.
Okay. Mary?
You know, I think that the decision whether we would wear masks or not would be different if the person that was harmed that doesn't wear if the person that was harmed was the one that doesn't wear the mask. But the thing is if you don't wear a mask, you are endangering other people, not yourself so much as other people. And I think that is where the difference lies between a freedom and doing what you want for your own children and it being something for that we have to do for the public, for the people that are the other people that are involved, because masks by and large are not for you, they're for other people, for the safety of other people. And I think the decision would be different if the person that wore the mask was the one that would have to suffer the consequences. But it's not that way. And this is why I believe that the governor made the decision that he did. And there have been people that have asked him to do this, other board members who have asked them to do this. So I believe this is why he took and made this rule until September 30th.
Okay, Angela?
Thanks, Greg. I have a question on a different topic. Megan, you mentioned the late bus is back at 5:15. And I noticed most of the practices for sports are ending at 4:15, 4:30. In the inclement weather, will the kids be able to utilize the mall until the late bus comes?
We would make certain that the students are monitored. That said, I think you bring up a good point on the timing of the bus. So let me go back to Matt Parachi to make certain that we are aligning to what is the need. You know, the part of it is we're trying to make this convenient. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks.
Okay. Other comments? I'd like to weigh in on it since we seem to have exhausted everyone. I'll throw a couple things on the table based on my thinking on this. You know, I think Jen said something very important, which is that, look, if I were making a decision for myself as to whether I'm going to wear a mask or whether I'm going to be vaccinated or any of those things, I'm making the decision for myself. And as a board of education, we're making the decision on behalf of your kids. And I think that you don't want us to err on the side of just winging it. I think you want us to err on the side of, so Jen, I think that was a very, very important point you made. And I wanted to double down by highlighting it and underlining it. The other thing is I hear a lot about freedom and a lot of liberty stuff. And, you know, to be honest, guys, you're not talking about liberty. Look, I taught First Amendment law to journalism students as an adjunct professor at a Connecticut university. And I have studied civil liberties and that is, it's one of my side issues. And let me tell you something. There's a very famous quote in the area of liberties, which is that your rights end at my nose. All right. And if you're going to be out there spraying particulates that contain a virus that could potentially be fatal to me, maybe it won't be fatal. Maybe I'll only end up in the intensive care unit for 4 weeks. Maybe I'll end up on a ventilator. Maybe I'll end up as a permanent diabetic, because those are all things that this disease causes. So if you're going to possibly be releasing those droplets in my direction, your right to release them ends at my nose. And since you can't stop them in front of my nose when you're in fairly close proximity to me, you need to wear a mask to protect me, as I need to wear a mask to protect you, because I could be vaccinated and still get the disease. So that, you know, the idea of liberty, this isn't about liberty. This is about public order and public safety is really what it's about. And that's why we have a health director. Now, another issue that came up, you know, is that a lot of people don't want their kids masked. Well, I wouldn't want my kids masked if they were in school. I don't want to be masked. None of the board members want the kids to be masked. But I'll tell you what, your complaint isn't with the superintendent. It's not with the governor. It's not with us. It's with all your neighbors and friends and other people in society who refuse to be vaccinated. Because you heard tonight from the director of public health in New Milford that the vaccination is not, the idea of the vaccination is not to keep you from getting COVID. The idea of the vaccination is to keep you from getting extremely sick, from ending up in the emergency room, from ending up in intensive care and ending up on a ventilator. And if you can, if by everybody getting vaccinated, you can withdraw that as a potential, as make that a very remote possibility, extremely remote possibility, which with these vaccinations it is. It's only a few thousand people that have had the vaccination and then gotten COVID and then gotten that sick. Out of the 109, almost 200 million people in America have gotten the vaccine. You know, if you can take that stuff off the table, then you can live with this disease, and then you can unmask, and then you can, maybe a few people are going to get a mild or asymptomatic case of COVID. It becomes like the flu or like the common cold. But until people get vaccinated, you don't have that result. And there have been kids and there have been people that have gotten extremely ill with this virus. And it's you know, to say that your complaint is we don't want our kids masked, well, then get the shot and get everybody you know to get the shot. And the idea that it's not safe, well, I don't think the FDA would have approved it, or CDC, whoever. I think it's FDA that approves it. I don't think they would have approved it had they not determined that it was safe and effective, because that's their standard. The federal standard is the drug safe and effective? They consider vaccines effective if they work 50% of the time. But the one they approved works 95% of the time and possibly close to 100% in teenagers. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, where is the masking coming from? It's coming from the fact that people are not getting vaccinated. And so I think that's something that, you know, we're going to listen to people like the health director. And not only that, but she's got the background in epidemiology, and she's telling us this is the case. Look, I know nobody wants to put their kids through any of these horrible things, but let me tell you something. Having your kid wear a mask isn't even in the same ballpark as what the parents had to face during the polio epidemic. And if you were to go visit the University of Pittsburgh, Pitt, if you were to go visit there and go to the area about the Jonas Salk Institute, he was there working, and he thanked the parents of the kids in Pittsburgh because they volunteered their kids to take his vaccine to see if it was effective, because they knew that polio was worse. And the problem I hear now is I hear a lot of people making a comparison. They make a safety risk-benefit analysis. They say, gee, what's the risk of taking the vaccine? What's the risk of taking the vaccine or not? That's not your risk comparison. Your comparison is, what is the risk of the vaccine versus the risk of getting COVID? And believe me, it's no contest. The risk of getting COVID is many, many orders of magnitude worse than the risk of whatever that vaccine might do to the few people who have gotten it. I mean, 200 million Americans, and I don't think anybody's died from the vaccine. So don't tell me I'm muted, but you've got your hand up, Sue.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, Greg, but per policy 9322, you now need a vote to extend the meeting.
We will, but we'll take that after I finish talking, because I'm almost done, okay?
Okay.
So bottom line is, I think you have to be focused on the right risk assessment. You have to be focused on, how do we get people vaccinated so we can take off the masks and turn this thing into something more like the flu or the common cold, where it's by and large annoying, benign, and at the end of the day, yes, some people die. Some people get it and die, but very few, an infinitesimal number, 0.001%. That's where you need to be with this, and you'll get there through vaccination. You won't get there by saying we got to take the masks off. You know, that's not going to solve the problem. And we're a little bit at the mercy of the government. Yeah, did we vote for the mandate? No, we didn't vote for the mandate, but you voted for the governor. So that's what happens. You know, that's the society and system we live in. But you can't just do whatever you want. It's not a liberty situation. You've got to take a right position, and you owe something to society, which has given you so much. You owe something to them, and that's to preserve them and protect everyone. We've got to be in this together. So those are my thoughts on it. But right now we're at the stage where it's not our call. It's not the superintendent's call. It's the state's call. And eventually it may be our call, and we'll have to get there. But I really think vaccination is the solution to this problem. Okay, Sue is right. She has called to my attention that we have a policy that when our meeting goes past 10 o'clock, we need to have a vote. So would someone make a motion to continue the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? I see no one opposed. All those
Oh, I wasn't
abstaining.
muted the whole time.
I see no one abstaining, so it's unanimous. We are extending the meeting. Thank you, Sue, for pointing that out.
Can I just wanted to say one thing in reference to Cindy, who talked in the beginning of the public comment. And I think her question was important, actually, and it gave me pause, because I think that if we are asking students and faculty to attend in-person classes masked, that we absolutely should be doing the same. And so I just feel that if we're extending this and expecting everybody to come into the classroom, then we should be hauling ourselves into the library and meeting in person. And so
we will talk about that.
Because I think her point was well made. And I think it's something that we absolutely, if we're asking this of our district, then we absolutely need to be doing the same. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, Megan, good luck on this plan. Hope it works. Let's move on to action item H3, which is to consider and if appropriate, approve 5 additional early dismissal days for the students to allow professional development for staff to address learning acceleration needs. Megan, I'll let you take this, but you sent out a really good piece of paper on it that explained exactly why you wanted it. So I'm ready to vote, but do you have anything you want to add?
I'm going to tell you, I'm all about brevity right now. The long and short is that we are still recovering educationally from COVID. We need additional time in order to work with our faculty so that way they can adjust how they are teaching our instructional methodologies so we can appropriately accelerate our students' learning. We are still off target on, year-to-year growth. And we recognize this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so we are asking for some breathing room and 5 additional early dismissal days. Last year, the board was wonderful and provided us 10. I don't think we need something every month, but I do think that especially early on, we need to make certain that we are preparing our teachers to educate our students appropriately.
All right, would someone care to make a motion along the lines of here?
I make a motion to approve 5 additional early dismissal days for students to allow a professional development for staff to address learning acceleration needs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
John's voting nay. All those abstaining. I hear none abstain. I hear no abstentions. So the vote is whatever it is. However, what do we have? We have all 12 here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 11-1. Okay.
I saw Justin's hand, but I think I heard Joe's voice on the second.
I think
Yes.
Yeah, I heard Joe's voice on the second, but Justin had his hand up. So give it to whoever.
I didn't realize I was muted. Give it to Joe. It's fine.
Okay, otherwise you guys can fight over it. Okay.
Whatever.
All right.
He'd win.
Do we have a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of negotiation strategies and consideration of potential settlement for nurses agreement for 21 to 24? Ratification vote will be in the public session. Discussion of negotiation strategies and consideration of potential settlement for the custodian cafeteria workers agreement for the same year's ratification in the public session, and discussion on custodial memorandum of understanding and discussion of a legal matter.
So
I so
moved.
move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.